Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City of Onkaparinga Council meeting for the 10th of December 2024. I'd like to make everyone feel very welcome here in the chamber this evening, all our special guests and our deputations. Please make yourself at home and as well as you can, but no yelling and screaming, not that level of comfort. If people do misbehave, I will be asking them to leave the chamber, but I'm expecting excellent behaviour from all of you this evening. We do have a number of deputations and we also have some presentations. But just to begin the meeting, we do have an apology from Councillor Wilkes, who's at a concert tonight with her children, and as many of us have been over this holiday season. And I do also have an apology from us. The screen that you can see there up in the gallery is not working this evening, so hopefully you can see the one behind me. So to begin our meeting, I'll invite all of our elected members to stand and take tonight's pledge. We recognise the city's considerable natural and cultural heritage, including thousands of years of traditional ownership by Ghana and the more recent contribution from people either born here or who have migrated here. As we meet together, we build on this heritage by respecting and listening to each other, thinking clearly, being receptive to new ideas, speaking honestly and deciding wisely for the current and future well-being of those we serve. Thanks, everyone. I'm going with a mover for the confirmation of the last meeting's minutes. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Yes, happy to move.
Thank you very much. A seconder. Councillor Platten. Any questions? All those in favour? Against? The motion's carried. Thank you very much. No adjourned business. We now have no leaves of absence either. And then the next item is the Mayor's report. Do I have a mover for that? Oh, sorry. Yeah. I had a little technical hitch. Can we just, let's just do a quick test. Everything working? Thank you. All right, you're on your buzzers, so that's very good. Sorry. So I've got, can I just ask? I just turned it off. All right, so let's have a go. Councillor THEMELIOTIS. Thank you. And to second, Councillor Fisher. Thank you. Any questions? Debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Looks like everything's now back on track. Thank you very much. We're now up to item 6, which for those of you who are following electronically is on page 21. And I'd really like to please welcome our Hills and FLEURIEU Landscape Board. We've got Michael Garrett and Janet Klein. If you'd like to come up to the speaker's place up here at the lectern. And tonight the representatives of the Landscape Hills and FLEURIEU Board, and as you know, we straddle a couple of landscape areas. Michael and Janet are going to tell us what's been happening and what will be happening into the future. They're very happy to take questions as well, and I will leave you all in their capable hands. But welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today. I'm Janet Klein, here today as Acting Chair for David Greenoff. And with me today is Michael Garrett, who is our General Manager for the board. I live near Mount Barker and have a biodiverse vineyard, so you can certainly relate to this photo in the beautiful McLaren Vale region. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to provide an overview of our 2024-25 business plan. Understandably, your agenda is very full. So we're here now pretty much halfway through this financial year, but as you will see, many of our projects and programs are much longer, spanning many financial years. Operating the slide. Thank you. Our board up is made of 9 community representatives with a diversity of skills and connections with different parts of our region. Just introducing us here, we have Dr. Chris West on the left, Amy Williams. We have actually two members who have recently resigned for various personal reasons, and so we're in the process of recruitment, Amy being one of them. Jock Harvey, representing the wine industry, David Greenoff, our chair, Leon Moffat, Andy Lowe, or Professor Andy Lowe from Adelaide University, myself, and Keith Parks. Thank you. Our purpose, working together to care for land, water and nature, reflects the board's deep commitment to fostering collaborative efforts to protect and enhance our environment. We're proud of the progress we've made in implementing our 2021 to 26 landscape plan, which sets out our strategic priorities over a 5-year timeframe. The landscape plan sets out 5 priorities, as you can see here on the right: land, water, nature, community and climate. And the diagram illustrates how managing land, water and nature within our region is dependent on working together with landholders and communities. And we do all our work with a review to climate adaptation and finding climate mitigation opportunities. Thank you. The Hills and FLEURIEU landscape region takes in all of the Adelaide Hills Council, Mount Barker District Council, Alexandrina Council, City of Victor Harbour, District Council of Yankalilla, about half of the City of Onkaparinga. Obviously, within those regions, we've got significant population centres, being Mount Barker, Victor Harbour, the Central Hills, Crafers, Bridgewater area, Strathalbyn, Birdwood and McLaren Vale, all shaping the nature of our activities and our interaction with our community. And of course, we span 3 nations, the Kaurna, the Ngarrindjeri and the Paramank. Also of significance, I should point out, is the 160 kilometres of coastline, 439,000 hectares of land, 17,000 of which are conservation reserves. There are a number of urgent environmental challenges facing our region. There is only a short window to eradicate feral deer before they will be in our landscapes forever, a project which we're well endeavouring on. The water allocation plans that set out how much water can be used in the region require significant amendment, and there are also a high number of unauthorised dams that have been developed and that we are taking compliance action on. Reducing emissions from our land-based industries is also a priority to play our part in getting to net zero. And restoring nature at scale is required before we lose whole suites of species, including 78 threatened species of woodland birds across the Mount Lofty Ranges. Over the past 4 years, our programs have evolved to become more targeted and responsive to the unique challenges we face. We've sharpened our focus and resources to tackle the most pressing environmental issues. And now to delve into those a little more deeply, can I hand over to Michael, who'll provide an overview of our 2024-25 business plan and priorities. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. And look, I'm not going to go all that deep with, I think, about 8 minutes remaining. I'll motor through, but I understand there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end, so we'll avail ourselves of that, I'm sure. Shall I control from it? Oh, who's doing that, by the way? Thank you. Shall I do it? I'm happy to do it. Yeah, thank you. So just like councils and a lot of other organisations, in addition to our strategic 5-year plan, the Hills and FLEURIEU Landscape Board and all other landscape boards prepare and implement an annual business plan. And that sets out, like most business plans, a whole range of information about our funding and where we're investing in projects and programs and our immediate priorities. We do have some hard copies here with us tonight. We've got about a dozen, so if anybody would like a copy, perhaps wave your hand around, or I could leave a couple with Julia to hand out in our absence after we go. The funding, so our sources of funding, really the 2 main sources of funding are our landscape levy. And so to enable us to do all of the work that we do to lead natural resource management in the region, to manage landscapes across quite a large area, as you saw from Janet's slide. The Act provides for two types of levies to be raised, the first being a regional landscape levy, which is collected by councils on our behalf from all rateable properties in the region, and a water levy, which is raised by Department for Environment and Water on our behalf, and that's based, on water volume that is held by water licence holders. We do have other sources of funding. External funding is mostly federal government funding, investing in specific species recovery and other work, sustainable ag, a few projects that they fund. We have some carryover. Our funding is a bit peaky and trophy with that federal funding, so State Cabinet does allow us to move funding around. So our total funding is in the order of $12 million in the current financial year. Sorry about that. Having said I'll control this, it's not. There we go. So where do we make that program investment? As you can see here, our 5 priorities set out in the strategic plan, land, water, nature and climate community, are relatively well balanced across our landscape and water levies, with the one exception of the water levy, investment in the water priority. And I should point out that that $4 million figure there includes about $1.5 million that we pay directly to the Department for Environment and Water for water planning and management functions. So when that's taken into account, it drops down to something a little bit more in balance with the others. One of the most significant recent changes to our operations is the rolling out, I'm doing it again, of our stewardship program. And so in the last 12 months or so, we've reshaped our organisation significantly around this flagship program. And this new approach to our service delivery is really has divided the region into districts, and in each district we have established a team of NRM professionals. We call them stewardship officers, and their role really is to provide a diverse range of supports to land managers to help them be the best land managers that they can be. The support we provide is arranged under 5 key outcomes we hope to achieve. As you can see on the screen, they are for landholders to understand their responsibilities, to create a plan for managing natural assets on their property, to care for watercourses, wetlands and dams, care for native vegetation and undertake revegetation or habitat reconstruction, and to care for soils. So our team of about 15 stewardship officers range across the region within those districts, supporting land managers through a range of initiatives like events to build awareness and capacity to undertake things like pest, animal, plant control, and the things named on the screen there. We have had a huge response from the landholders in our region to the support being offered, and I think it's really going to raise the bar. And I might just take a moment to explain why we're putting a focus on particular landholders. So in our region, we're looking at something like 130,000 residents, as Janet mentioned, 14,000 private landholders who own more than 1 hectare, collectively manage 92% of the region. So those 14,000 landholders manage 92%. Within that, 6,000 of them who own more than 25 hectares each collectively manage 81% of the region. So if we can engage with and work with those 3,500 land managers, the people who are making daily decisions on what they're going to do on their property to raise the bar or not, we can really make an impact. And one of the big challenges in our region, and I think you would face it as well, is a high property turnover. So we know that on average, those rural properties are turning over once between every sort of 7 and 10 years. So it's something like a 10% turnover. And often these people coming into the landscape are not equipped with the tools or the knowledge or the inclination in some cases to do the hard yards it is to be a rural land manager. And so that's where the stewardship program has come from. So back to maybe I should have left this to you. Would you mind? Thank you. Back to our 5 priorities, starting with land. So as Janet touched on, there's a range of priorities, and perhaps I'll work from the left over. Regional grazing pressure management is a big part of our efforts. It's controlling large vertebrate herbivores that are doing significant damage not only to the natural environment but also to our productive landscapes. We're in a situation where there was something like 40,000 deer in South Australia, and over the last 3 or 4 years, landscape boards and their partners have reduced that by about half. In the Hills and Fleurieu region, we had about 7,000 to 8,000 deer, many of them in the peri-urban. They're very cryptic. You may have seen deer, you may not, but they are in your region. They're in your council area. They're in the peri-urban area. We've reduced that 7 to 8 by about half, and we're genuinely on track to eradicate them. And it's a sobering thought to think that in the eastern states where deer have gotten away, and they're always going to be part of the landscape, they've got in the order of 2 million deer in Victoria, and they're never going to eradicate that. We're much earlier on the invasion curve, and with concerted effort and with partners like PIRSA, Forestry, DEW, and indeed councils, I think we can eradicate this problem, which is going to cost us hundreds of millions in the long term. I've spent too much time on deer, but it's a bit of a hobby horse at the moment. We also do a great deal of work, often in partnership with councils and other agencies in controlling roadside pests. As I've mentioned, a lot of advice and support to landholders to manage soil and to manage pests, and a whole bunch of programs to support landholders embrace sustainable agriculture. Next slide, please. Moving to the water priority, as Janet mentioned, water allocation plans are critical instruments to make sure everybody gets their fair share of this limited resource and no more than their fair share. Our water allocation plans are 10 years old and in desperate need of amendment. They've been reviewed and I think everybody agrees they need to be amended. They were written in a way that didn't contemplate a drying climate, didn't contemplate climate change really at all. And so we'll be doing some very important work over the next couple of years to amend both the Eastern Mount Lofty Ranges Water Allocation Plan and the Western Mount Lofty Ranges. Water affecting activities and high performing dams. We have a significant issue in the Mount Lofty Ranges with dams being built without authorisation. As you may be aware, dams of greater than 5 megs require development approval, less than 5 megs require water affecting activity approval, and we have something in the order of 450 dams that have been built with neither, and they are in effect stealing water from the environment and stealing water from other water users, and we've got to address that. So we've got a significant compliance campaign shaping up around that. In addition to that, we do a great deal of water monitoring, including encouraging landholders and water licence holders in the McLaren Vale area to submit groundwater samples so that we can better understand how salinity is tracking in that part of our region. There is also a contribution that we've made to the McLaren Vale Regional Water Security Strategy, which I know City of Onkaparinga was instrumental in, and I understand that's soon to be released for public consultation. Moving on to nature, please. Rebird the Ranges is a partnership that we've brought together of over 20 organisations, research organisations and NGOs to scale up woodland bird habitat reconstruction across the region. We know that without this habitat reconstruction, we are likely to lose something like 78 threatened bird species from the region, many of whom would be in the foothills part of City of Onkaparinga. Back from the Brink is a species recovery project funded by the federal government. In our region, they fund work on hooded plovers, southern bellfrog, Murray hardyhead, and western beautiful firetail. They're the only 4 species out of the 100 or so threatened species that we've got that the feds are funding, so that's a bit disappointing, but we are doing some important work with those guys. We are also working in collaboration with a range of partners around revising the Southern Fleurieu Coastal Action Plan, and I know that City of Onkaparinga is divided between Green Adelaide and Hills and Fleurieu, but we're working very closely with Green Adelaide on that work too. In terms of climate, if we could go to the next slide, we have a climate-ready ag team and a carbon outreach project that supports land managers to undertake carbon audits and to improve carbon management practices in the rural sector across our region. We're also a funder or part funder and partner to the Resilient Hills and Coast, which is a collaborative cross-sector partnership working to strengthen climate resilience in communities, economies and natural and built environments. I understand City of Onkaparinga is not part of that, but all other councils within our Hills and Fleurieu region are partners to Resilient Hills and Coasts. Community, if I may, we work closely, as Janet mentioned, with our First Nations, Kaurna, Ngarrindjeri and Purrumanc First Nations on planning and management of country. We've had some recent success, a really significant win with the Ngarrindjeri Aboriginal Corporation, working with them to secure $4.4 million for a First Nations Ranger program. This will see young people receiving training and the opportunity to work on country, not on park, although it's a ranger program, but any land, private or public, where they can be contracted to do the kinds of work work that we're talking about, mostly weed control, pest control, habitat reconstruction. We have supported Ghana to undertake a healthy country planning process, which is a precursor or a requirement to go for future funding. And we're very hopeful we can get a First Nations Ranger team funded for Ghana as well. We support local community-driven environmental projects with grassroots grants. We've issued more than $1.2 million in the last 5 years in grassroots grants. I did crunch the numbers, and City of Onkaparinga, although it's a fairly small part of our region, has punched pretty well on your weight, with about 10% of that coming into projects in the council area. We do offer other support to volunteer groups in terms of training and the like, and we run a number of citizen science initiatives. I've completely lost track of time, but I can tell you this is the last slide. And just to reiterate Janet's point, our 5-year strategic plan is coming to its final years. We'll be undertaking a process to review and to assess the success of that plan, and that'll include a survey in early 2025 with a range of our stakeholders, but most particularly councils and in particular operational staff that we work with on those initiatives that I've outlined. And we'll be working closely with our community over that period, July to September 2025, to shape up our next 5-year strategic plan. We really look forward to City of Onkaparinga's input into that. And that's...
Thank you so much, Michael, and Janet as well. Just open up if there are any questions from elected members. Councillor Dew.
Thank you for your presentation. My one question was, one of our priorities at the City of Onkaparinga is around tree canopy. And I noticed what we've observed is there's also, I guess, a requirement or a need to get local landholders and residents feeling ownership over that and actually supporting that movement. And wondering if you also have it as a priority. It hasn't been mentioned, and I wondered if there's a message throughout the stewardship program potentially.
Certainly stewardship, I think, for those rural landowners would be the right vehicle. But I think when you're talking about tree canopy, it's the kind of work, and it was remiss of me not to mention that we have very strong partnerships with Green Adelaide. Green Adelaide, as you're well aware, has developed the urban greening strategy. And while that's not named as one of our high priorities, it is certainly something we contribute to in active. We're working actively with Green Adelaide to see how we might implement that greening strategy in other urban centres, so Mount Barker, for example, in our region, and other high growth areas. But we'd be certainly working very closely with Green Adelaide to help roll out that greening strategy in the more urban parts of the City of Onkaparinga. And you saw from the map, we're kind of south and east of this Onkaparinga River, so the main urbanised part of your council area is in that Green Adelaide.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. Just in respect to the recent survey that was done by the state government in relation to cat management, and actually we've got an agenda item later. Did you guys make any submissions over that?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, what, just give us a general context of...
that cat control is critical. We know that cats take nationally 40 million native animals every day. They're a critical threat to biodiversity, and better cat control is required. We also lent support to a push that the Kangaroo Island Landscape Board was leading to allow for the use of soft jaw traps within a certain area of domestic dwellings, and that's recently passed. So we're counting that as a real success. I think everything that councils and other stakeholders can do to increase and improve cat management would be welcomed by the landscape.
Yeah, just one other question that relates to fox control. I'm actually seeing quite a few out. What programs do you run?
We support neighbourhoods, so landholders to come together and bait as a collective. We provide baits. We're not the only provider of baits, but we do a great deal of distribution of fox baits and training for landholders to how to use them most effectively. But of course, if one neighbour's baiting and another neighbour is not, you've got that sink and source problem. So our effort is mostly to get neighbourhoods as broad as we can, operating as one, baiting in the same way at the same time to try and knock it out. But it is, unfortunately, with fox management, it is an ongoing management challenge. We're never going to eradicate them.
And we certainly see them coming out of conservation parks, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher. It's actually Councillor Bell, is it? Okay. No. Do you want to try another one? Let's try this one. Freckling. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. A couple of questions. Can you tell me a little bit more about the unauthorised dams? How big a problem is that, particularly given we might have quite a few of them in Onkaparinga?
Look, it's a really significant issue. We haven't quantified in terms of volume, but we have done some spatial analysis work to determine that we're probably looking at, across our whole region, 450 dams that have been constructed from scratch since 2019 without authorisation, and probably about 300 that have been significantly enlarged without authorisation. So it's keeping me awake at night, to be frank, because we are in a process where that water isn't there. There's been a moratorium in the Mount Lofty Ranges on new dam construction for a decade more, probably 15 years actually. And so anybody who's built a dam without authorisation is taking water that isn't there, denying it from downstream users and the environment. That's a critical thing. And it's a really hard thing to engage with a landholder who might have, just because of ignorance and sometimes because they just wanted to, has built an asset on their property. Sometimes they've spent tens of thousands of dollars building a thing that ultimately we're going to require them to remove. So, yeah, it's
Thank you. Thank you. The other question was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned 14,000 owners.
more than 1 hectare.
Yep, own 92% of the land, is that right?
Private land,
Of
yes.
the private land. And seeing that, I mean, I drive around a lot in the hills, and I'm sure others do, but I know I have been for 28 years or so, in particular, since I've lived in the city of Onkaparinga in Kangarilla. And I do see a lot of bare land still, a lot of overgrazing as well. Can you comment on that?
Overgrazing is a problem. We do a lot of work to support landholders to manage their grazing pressure. There's no getting around the fact that there are some inexperienced and ill-equipped land managers out there, and unfortunately, it's a very wide band between being inadequate and being unlawful, and that's the challenge we find ourselves in, because the very worst of the worst, we do have compliance tools, but just not doing very well as a land manager isn't a crime. And the Act requires that we work in a collaborative, and I agree with it, a collaborative, supporting, educational awareness raising way. And that's why we're putting most of our effort into that through the stewardship program.
Thank you. One last question. Can anyone call you? Good. Because I'm a small land owner. I've got only 2 acres and we have a family of rabbits at the moment. So do I need to call you about that?
Yeah, and I'll put an action order on and be obliged to control them.
Thank you very much.
No more questions. Councillor Platten.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I had a query about the dams as well. It's a 2-part question, so I'll ask them both. Are we using like drone technology or near maps, for example, to find the illegal dams?
We were using high-res aerial imagery, so satellite imagery actually, but it's presence absence time sequence. So from 2019, we've chosen 2019 because there is a statute, it's 5 years to start action. So in fact, the problem is probably even bigger than that. But to be fair, to be honest rather, we thought we were doing a pretty good job finding half a dozen or 10 unauthorised dams a year and pursuing them through the ERD court. It's a lot of work, but we thought we were doing a cracking job. And changes to technology and a comparison yielded a whole bunch of things across and over the valleys or over the ridgelines where our people don't see it. And it's a significant number.
Yeah. And given that there is such a high turnover of ownership on the land, do we put some sort of compliance over their title so that must be complied with before they can sell?
There are options available to us, land management agreements and caveats on title for particular works. It's not used often, but if we have begun compliance activity on a landholder, say for an unauthorised dam, that would be registered as an interest, and any prospective buyer will be aware of that. But it's not a land management agreement that goes on title.
Okay. And one further question. My assumption is that they would be required to put in a development application if they had an illegal dam.
There's some question about whether retrospectivity can be entertained in this, and the failure to seek a development approval is something that ultimately might have been approved through development approval or development application. We have Crown Solicitor's advice is that We can still go through the same compliance triage and determine which ones we need action on, and the tools available to us under the Landscape Act. So there's an order we can put on about rectifying an unauthorised activity. That's probably the cleanest mechanism than any sort of retrospective dam approval development application for a dam that wouldn't have been approved had it been sought anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
So are any dams approved at all now?
Very few, and it generally has to involve an offset. So if a landholder's got 3 1 meg dams and they want to knock them over and build a 3 meg dam, that's okay. But new water take is very difficult with lofty ranges.
Do we have the same compliance around large water tanks?
No, no. Large water tanks, depending where the water comes from, are perfectly lawful.
Okay.
Even taking, unfortunately, even taking water out of say a permanent pool to store it in the tank is not the same as building a new dam.
Yeah. Okay. No worries. Thank you so much.
There's no further questions. Thank you very much for your contributions to our learning and understanding about the Landscape Board's work. And you might be getting a phone call any minute now from one of our elected members. So thank you, everyone.
I leave a couple of copies.
You certainly may. And thank you so much. We're going to move now into a couple more presentations. The first one, I think Matt Buckle's going to talk to us about. We have been getting lots of lovely awards. So do you want to talk about that?
Thank you. So on the 21st of November, the South Australian Institute of Public Works and Engineering Australia held their annual Excellence Awards for 2014. The City of Onkaparinga nominated 2 great community projects in Knox Park and Aldinga Sports Park Stage 1. The Knox Park multi-use sports park upgrade was a finalist in the Best Public Works project between $2 and $5 million and was awarded a commendation. So that was a great recognition for this fantastic project. And with state government funding support, it's transformed the underutilised space into the first ever formal home for athletics in the South, which is a fantastic outcome for our community, and we're really proud of the many staff involved in supporting its delivery. The Aldinga Sports Park Stage 1 won the award for the Best Public Works project for over $5 million. So that was a really challenging project with plenty of twists and turns along the way, and on top of that list was the announcement through the course of planning of the Aldinga Super School at that time, and the need for council to develop an integrated master plan for our sports park that also considered the planning for the adjacent school and capitalised and complemented the facilities being provided across the 2 sites. So a really complex project involved delivery of new soccer pitches and club room for Aldinga Soccer Club, the first time we've had a facility dedicated for that club in the South, new and refurbished change rooms for football and cricket, renewal of netball courts, hockey lights, and new club kiosk, and also the new Aldinga War Memorial amongst a range of other upgrades as well. So it was a big project and a huge team effort from a number of staff across the organisation as well. Also, though, I want to acknowledge and thank elected members for, I guess, involvement and support for the project. So both of those took a number of years to deliver, detailed community engagement processes and really complicated stakeholder discussions and some tricky decisions that we needed to make along the way. So I just want to acknowledge that working together, we're able to deliver some great outcomes for our community with great support from the state and federal government and funding as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Another round of applause for this. And we beat the Marians. We want to take it down.
Evening members, this one's a little bit exciting for us, but it's a little bit complex, so just bear with me. So Onkaparinga was one of 7 councils that jointly won the regional award in the Minister for Health and Wellbeing Excellence in Public Health Awards for a project to improve oversight of on-site wastewater management systems. responding to a problem experienced by all councils in areas without wastewater infrastructure. So a truly collaborative project that was supported by the LGA, South Australia's Local Government Research and Development Scheme, and involved partnerships with Environmental Health Australia, SA Health and the industry. So led by Tricia Franks, one of our senior environmental health officers, but ably supported by Nicole Moore, our team leader of environmental health, alongside the other 6 councils were key drivers of this project. They were also well supported by our engagement team, which helped guide the planning and implementation of a complex engagement strategy that gleaned feedback from stakeholders across Australia and as far as New Zealand. So ultimately, the project created a standardised report that industry can use when servicing wastewater systems and to ensure failing wastewater systems don't go undetected, improving outcomes for public health and the environment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just saying to the staff that the Chief Medical Officer, Nicholas Spurrier, was there for the presentation of that at our local government LGA annual general meeting, and was particularly commenting on that initiative. Sometimes regulatory things are not as exciting as buildings, but they will keep people safe for a long, long time. So congratulations again to both teams, because these things don't just happen. Okay, we are on to deputations now. And our first deputy tonight, I just need to check actually, were we doing a commendation one as well? No? No, okay, sorry. Ignore that little bit, just delete that from the video. Our first deputy tonight is Stephanie, and Stephanie Jarrett, and she's going to be joined by Serena, and they're going to do their deputation from down here this evening. So if you'd like to come forward, and as they're coming forward, Steph's going to talk about disability and aged care facilities, and Serena's going to read her statement for her. If you'd like to come up to number 10, I think will be on for you. And Councillor Clayton, would you give us a hand and press the button, the buzzer, so that we can, that's it, beautiful. Thank you very much. And you've got 8 minutes, and you'll hear a sound at the 6-minute mark, and don't worry about that. It's just to remind you that you've got 2 minutes to go, and you can read the screen from up there. So it's all yours. Off you go. Hang on a second, that doesn't seem to be working so well. Let's see if we can get a better outcome. Let's have a try. Hang on.
Yeah. This one.
Yeah, that one's better. Scoot along.
We've got to move.
Apologies, we'll start the clock again. You haven't lost any time. Apologies for that.
Oh, goodness me. Okay.
There we go. Serena, you comfy? Ready to go?
Yeah.
Off you go.
All right. Can you hear me now? Good evening, Mayor and councillors. I have been living in the Onkaparinga Council area for 40 years. I have enjoyed the stunning areas, mostly the coastal areas from O'Sullivan's Beach, Christie's Beach, Port Noarlunga, seafood, not seafood, Moana and Aldinga beaches and surroundings, including Willunga and McLaren Vale. I never noticed before, as I was an able-bodied person with my family and my pet, how lacking the Onkaparinga Council area is for aged and disabled residents and visitors. My background is community service, from community centres as a project officer, a support worker in the community, a diversional therapist in residential care, a social worker and postgraduate counsellor. I have volunteered with the community development in the council,
organise social outlets for sole parents and playgroups. I run as a counsellor when I was studying my diploma in the 90s. I've worked with young people and aged people in placements also. I've had 3 strokes, have heart failure and other life-threatening complex health issues. The worst was 3 years ago. I had 1% chance of surviving. I did. I'm trying to piece my life back to a degree. I visited many areas in Onkaparinga to have community access and socialise after 4 months in hospital in 21-22. But I am finding that there is a lack of facilities and car parks for the Asian disabilities in this area. I counted 1 disabled car park on Beach Road next to the Rotary Park. This car park was blocked off. There are some car parks on Beach Road, most bank up to the Esplanade from the end of Beach Road. Pictures are supplied. There is a toilet on the Esplanade at the end of Beach Road, which doesn't have a disability toilet and is currently fenced off. There are stunning views from Christie's Beach from the footpath. There is a wooden ramp down to the sand. Then there is soft sand and the beach is not accessible for anyone who uses a pram, walker, etc. I noted that the ramp ends at a runoff with sewerage. At O'Sullivan's Beach, there is a dog beach and a boat ramp. I'm very disappointed and disgusted that the boat ramp has been upgraded, costing thousands of dollars of funding. Going to the dog beach, the disability car parks have reduced from 4 to only 2 disability car parks. Pictures supplied. There is a ramp to the beach. All of it is made of soft sand, which means that no one with a disability can access it. There are dog water taps, bags for toileting, a bin, but it is only for the able-bodied people to access. I note that there are 2 disability car parks next to the cafe. The rest of the disability car parks are far away from the dog beach and the cafe. Pictures attached. In Port Noarlunga, there are no disability car parks at all on the roads. There are 3 disability car parks in the car park next to the eateries next to the jetty. These are always full. There are parks for permits. These are empty. No one uses them. The most disappointing thing is that the beach at Port Noarlunga can't be accessed by aged, as there are cement steps to the soft sand. Only able-bodied people can access this area. There are wooden steps on the jetty of the right side, meaning that there is no access to Port Noarlunga Beach at all. The disappointment is that the council has paid thousands of dollars of funding to erect conical Aboriginal cement layers next to the steps. These are nice to see and to be included, though. I noticed that there are works to make a boardwalk around the cliffs on the right of the jetty. All has been closed to the public, so there is no access. I assume that there is another thousands of funding to erect a boardwalk for able-bodied or someone to take disabled aged people to view the stunning view of the jetty, beach, sand and the cliffs. Go back to the foreshore on the footpath. There are 2 sets of stairs to get to the eateries next to the car park. So only able-bodied people can access these places. There are a few indents from the footpaths to the road to access anywhere at Port Noarlunga. There are 4 low steel stools on the footpath to view the beach next to the steps to the beach under shade, but hard to get up from those stools. I noticed that eateries such as Agatha's have tucked away toilet facilities behind the restaurants, so a walker or wheelchair can't use them. Most of the eateries in Port Noarlunga have steps, no ramps for disabled or aged people. The tables are so close as well, so no walkers or wheelchairs can come in. Most facilities have stools now, so this stops disabled and aged people from using them. At Moana Beach, which is a drive-on beach, which is great, but it's only accessible as the sand is hard and a support worker or family member could drive on the beach if there is hard sand and if there is room at the beach, but it's mostly crowded. At the car park in Moana, there are 2 disability car parks. There are 2 more disability car parks towards the northern end of Moana car park. So the car parks are for able-bodied people. All of the foreshore is bricked up with a couple gaps of cement ramps to the soft sand. Then there is a wooden ramp, which is unkempt with build-up of soft sand, and there is a step of at least 8 centimetre drop from the ramp to the soft sand. At Deep Blue for a meal, anyone with a disability has to be announced by another person. A staff member will open the disability ramp to get to the upper level of the restaurant. Paying is impossible as the register is on another level. Then we have to get a staff member to open the disability door and ramp. If using the toilet, there are steps to get there and a door to open, and this is not accessible. At Aldinga, most buildings are older style, hence there are steps to get inside to the place, i.e. a bakery is not accessible as there are several steps to get inside. Most Aldinga buildings are like this. I would like to implement ramps to places so most people can have access. There is no disabled car parks there. I went to Aldinga Hotel for lunch as they have access, but I had to be dropped off at the gaming room as that is nearest to the restaurant. There are only 2 disability car parks near the restaurant. There are more in other areas, but for a restaurant, there's only 2 disabled car parks there. They are snapped up very early, hence I had to be dropped off by a support worker. She parked outside on the road, then she came back to find me, leaving me alone. Going to McLaren Vale and Wollonga and surrounds, there are many eateries and places to go. Most have gravel in the car parks, so pushing a walker or wheelchair is nearly impossible, i.e. the jungle in Wollonga and most wineries. There are steps and gravel outside as it's cheaper. Going to Oscars for my birthday, they have yellow lines showing that they have steps to go inside. Most places in McLaren Vale are not accessible via disabled car parks and entrances. There are over 200 facilities in the Onkaparinga area. There are few community centres who cater for aged and disabled in the area. There are more than 170,000 people in the area who have disabilities, but the ratio of car parks and facilities to disabled people doesn't match. I've tried to find suitable venues and facilities in the area, but I'm stumped. I rang several places, i.e. Elizabeth House and Wakefield House in Morphett Vale. I've been told bluntly that I have to be over 65 years old to access these services. A council staff member gave me a place to go. It was a men's shed in Morphett Vale and it smelt with pungent smell from the closed shed. When I said it is not suitable due to my chemical issues, my case was closed. I'm too young and there is a lack of access to suitable services in this area. I'm disappointed that I was given one place and my case was closed with no future communication. I'm aware of an Inclusive Communities Action Plan 21 to 24. I do not have a copy of this document. I'm limited by my limited income and information of using the computer after my latest stroke. I'm not able to read much and I have fractures on my spine with neurological fatigue. This document took me over 3 hours to write with spelling and grammar checkers. I am determined to complete this document before my brain fades. I would like the council to look into access for disabled and aged people to allow them to access the stunning area in Onkaparinga that we are denied. I've seen many improvements in the Onkaparinga area, but it seems there's nothing more for disabled or for the aged. We have earned the right to use the local facilities that we used when we were able-bodied.
Serena, I'm just going to halt you there because we're over time.
That's right.
But thank you. And everyone's got a copy of the whole statement. I think there's only a paragraph to go. And I know that there may be some questions and it's a perfect day. It's a Human Rights Day. So it's a perfect day to be raising these issues with us in the chamber.
I did actually did a little pictures there because
yes, everyone's got a copy of that.
Because
that's all right.
I couldn't do that.
That's okay. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Councillor Jew. Councillor Jew, I don't know what's going on here. Try another one. No, that shouldn't make a difference.
Thank you for your deputation. We've communicated before, Stephanie, I think. I was really interested in how you feel that the City of Onkaparinga could actually elevate the voices of people with disability and aged care better. That's okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm wondering about how us as an organisation could do better at listening to the voices of people with disability and aged care. So how we could do better.
Yeah. More awareness. Awareness probably in the people in the community.
Yeah,
I would say. I was just asking the council first. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry it was limited because
no, it was very comprehensive. It was beautiful.
Can I just, I think if we can build awareness as a community, that's what build awareness as a community.
Awareness with all organisation, like I'm not target the organisation, the Onkaparinga, I'm just saying there's a lot of towns and cities which that should be aware that
Yeah.
there's so many places to go, but we just can't go there. And I'm so very sad.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. Thank you for sharing that with us tonight.
Councillor Bill. Do you want to come over there too?
Hello, thank you for your presentation, deputation. It was very interesting. What I found was amazing was you had a lot of different businesses, a lot of suburbs, a lot of towns. How long did it take you to do all of that?
I had my 3 years ago, and I've been going all these places with my support workers to organisations and companies and I just thought, oh, I can't go there, I can't do that. And yeah, I've been visiting a lot of places in those 3 years. But when I was able-bodied, I just didn't think about it. I just did it. I used to go to all these beaches, everything with no thought, and all of a sudden, no, and you just turned back.
I'm sorry to hear what you've been going through. A couple of other questions. Have you spoken to the businesses when you visited?
I've actually talked to the jungle, the news. I've asked to a few of them, please. Yes, I have.
Have you? Sorry.
And there's no. They're very defensive. That word. And then I said, you've got the car park. We can't push them. And they said it was cheaper and all that stuff. I said, I can't go there because they've got a disability car parks in the middle of in the gravel. How am I going to go to there? That doesn't make sense. I have taught to them, but they're not listening to me.
I'm sorry to hear that. Have you written to any local member of parliament?
I did. I wrote a letter to understand. I wrote a letter. I think Amanda's going to write back to me, or Amanda's a person. Her staff is going to. I reached out to 2 MPs. Oh no, 3 actually. Even Chris Seaford. Yeah.
And have you written to council previously with some of these issues?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
No, because the Onkaparingas is very large now, and I thought, well, let's go this one.
That was a very efficient way of doing it.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, because I just thought, like I saw, just go on Beach Road, there's one disability, the one I thought, yeah, anyway.
Thanks, Stephanie. We really appreciate you doing such a thorough audit on our behalf. And on behalf of all the people with disabilities. And thanks, Serena, for accompanying tonight and helping give that deputation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Our next deputy is Graham BYASS, who I believe has just joined us in the chamber. Graham, if you'd like to join us through the Graham, you can come and see. Bill, I think we can use number 11, if you wouldn't mind being the assistant microphone person. Graham's here tonight to speak about the CLIFFTOP walkway between ALDINGA, Surf Life Saving and the Esplanade. But that's all right. Now, Graham, you can stay there.
He'd rather use the.
Can I roll?
Yeah, if you want to, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, as you're coming up, it's 8 minutes you've got to speak. At the 6-minute mark, you will hear a chime, and that lets you know you've got 2 more minutes. And are you happy to take questions from councillors? Okay, well, if you've got papers to have, if Councillor Stafford, you give them to him, he'll take one and pass them around. Thank you very much. And the floor is yours. Your time starts now. Off you go.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. My deputation concerns a little-known pathway on the top of the sandhills at Aldinga Beach. The pathway extends from the Surf Lifesaving Club to the Esplanade at the north, near the S-Bends. The pathway is about 600 metres long and is a designated walkway. However, to my knowledge, it's never received any attention from council for the time that I have been living in the area, which is 40 years. So that means that the council has not maintained this pathway for 40 years or more. Now, the problem is that this pathway is unsuitable for 7 groups of people. Pedestrians with a disability cannot use the pathway. Disabled persons in wheelchairs cannot use the pathway. Disabled persons using gophers can't use the pathway. Disabled persons using walking aids, such as walking frames or walking sticks, cannot use the pathway. Elderly pedestrians who have mobility issues cannot use the pathway. Parents who have children in prams cannot use the pathway. And parents walking with small children cannot use the pathway. Now, the reason I can't use the pathway is because it's inconsistently constructed. I don't know when it was constructed, but it consists of several sections of what I would classify as rubble. And the surface of the pathway is totally unsuitable for anyone other than an Olympic athlete to actually walk on. It's not acceptable that this set of affairs is as is. What I'd like the council to check is this. First of all, the council has an inclusive communities action plan 2010-2024, which requires council to audit infrastructure to ensure compliance and improve safety and accessibility. And this is for everyone, not just for disabled people. So I really would like the council to assess this pathway and to do something about its condition. I'm suggesting that the pathway needs to be totally reconstructed. Now, of course, this will cost money and it's not on the current budget for the council, but I would also suggest that councillors take a look at the pathway themselves and see if they agree with my assessment of the issue down there. The situation down there is that I think many years ago, the pathway was actually meant to be a road until the Esplanade was detoured around the sandhills, and in detouring around the sandhills, this little pathway became a little walkway for local residents. Well, currently, many local residents can't even use it. So I'm asking that council assess the situation and with a view to actually totally reconstructing the pathway. It's a fairly important little pathway because it overlooks the entire south side and north side of Aldinga and SLSC Beach, and it's a fantastic viewing point for visitors. Now, most visitors who come down to the area wouldn't be able to walk on the pathway at all. It's that bad. So I invite the council to look at it. Councillors go down and check it out and see if there is a case for reconstructing the pathway. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. That's a very good invitation and provocation. Do we have any questions? There have been no questions. I think you've been heard. Oh, sorry. Councillor Yeomans? No, you can't go just yet, Graham. Councillor Yeomans, do you want to have a go? Let's see if your microphone's working. It's on, but nothing's happening. You're going to have to go try number 11. That seemed to work. Oh.
Good evening, Councillor.
Yes.
We'll meet again.
Thank you for your deputation, Graham. I will go down and have a bit of a look at it. I know what you're talking about, but I haven't been there. Just one of your dot points there. I was just having a quick look at your brochure. Thanks for providing that. You've got here, my discussions with council officers indicate that any maintenance was subject to consultation with local Indigenous groups prior to any action being taken on the maintenance or reconstruction of that path. Have you had any feedback? Would you know the outcome of those discussions?
Well, I am aware that the pathway as it exists is actually part of the Chilbookie Trail. I did have discussions with a council official 3 years ago about the maintenance of this pathway. And during that 3-year period, I haven't heard anything back about whether the pathway is going to be maintained or not. But I do believe that according to the council official, that the local Indigenous community had to be consulted if any work was to be done on the pathway. I don't know if that is correct or not, but I would assume it may be correct, yes. And I don't think it's happened.
Well, that's something we can look into. Is that okay? Yeah. I think, thank you so much for coming this evening.
Thank you so much. Good.
The next deputation this evening is from Melanie Kerton from Southern Volunteering, and she's here to talk to us tonight about the decline in volunteer activity. And I note that it was International Volunteer Day last week, the 5th of December, and I also note that yesterday, the state and federal government and Volunteering South Australia and Northern Territories, the state peak, entered into their new volunteering strategies. So it's lovely to have you here this evening.
Thank you.
You've got 8 minutes and you know the drill.
Yeah, so I don't think I'm going to take the 8 minutes. I'll be short and sharp and shiny. So my name's Mel. I'm from Southern Volunteering, which is local volunteer resource centre for the council area. Origin of this deputation came from a Facebook post by Councillor THEMELIOTIS about her observation in community as to community groups needing more volunteers and kind of being in a bit of a crisis around the number of volunteers that are stepping forward into community sports, community services, all the things that are happening across the city. To give you a bit of context, nationally, since 2022, there are nearly 2 million less volunteers. So it's a national trend that volunteering is in decline. And 83% of organisations that involve volunteers are now saying that they need more volunteers. COVID is often cited as the reason for the decline in volunteering. I believe that's true to a certain extent, but it's also a little bit of a smokescreen. It may have been the start of the decline in volunteering, but I think we've kind of had that and other factors that have created a perfect storm. So things like cost of living is heavily impacting on people's ability to volunteer. People are working 2 jobs or have less spare time. There's less obvious factors in terms of cost of living. So we've heard of volunteers resigning from their positions because they literally can't afford the petrol to put in the car to get to their volunteering. Childcare is another one whereby people are trying to save money on childcare expenses. Grandparents are being called in to provide the childcare, and those grandparents might have been the people that were volunteering in our communities. And also the digital divide as well is having a huge impact on volunteering, as a lot of organisations move more towards that, online for police checks, online for application forms, and people who may want to volunteer are kind of being shut out. We've also got other factors that we're hearing from organisations and volunteers in the community: declining health of long-term volunteers. So some of those people who've been involved in organisations for 15, 20 years, you know, are not going to be able to go on forever. Burnout of core volunteers, so especially in places like sports clubs, one person might be doing 3 or 4 different jobs, and they're literally just burning out. Red tape, bureaucracy, government reform in relation to Centrelink mutual obligations, so where people used to be able to volunteer, well, they still can volunteer for up to 15 hours a week in lieu of job search. But the government reform 2 years ago has kind of tightened and shifted that. So there's not as many of those volunteers coming forward. State and federal government have a real big focus on young people being the answer, and there's lots of money being put into programs to involve more young people. Personally, we believe that's a long-term solution, not a short-term solution. And we've got a crisis in the short term. So the future of programs that rely on volunteers is at risk. I've got a colleague in Queensland who actually says he believes we're on the verge of market failure for volunteering. And I'm sure many of you are hearing this from groups across the city that they're really struggling. So we've heard of closure of services altogether, so closure of organisations, or organisations reducing the services that they can provide. Volunteer managers are experiencing a lot of stress, where locally I've heard of a volunteer manager who is actually driving the bus because she hasn't got enough volunteers to drive the community transport bus. It's just having lots and lots of impact, and I think as it evolves, the broader impact on community will be devastating. So with Councillor THEMELIOTIS, we're looking for support from the Chamber to actually run an event in early 2025 to try and bring together volunteers, and particularly the organisations in the city, just to discuss what's actually happening within their organisations. We've done something very similar. We've got an office down on the FLEURIEU. We've just conducted those conversations down on the FLEURIEU, which has been really insightful. And as Mayor Weir said, there's a new state volunteering strategy, there's a national volunteering strategy, and to be able to have a voice for the city of Onkaparinga and you know, express what is really happening in communities with volunteers, but also to look for some solutions if there is any ideas of how we can try and encourage more people to volunteer. And one of the great outcomes from the conversation that for citizenship ceremonies, our organisation details are now going to be as part of the pact, so that if people want to volunteer, they know where to go. But yes, just to find some solutions to increase volunteers, to maintain and improve community services, and just stop the decline now. So yeah.
Thanks. Now I'll just open up for any questions. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Thanks, Mel. I've got 2 questions. The first question, and you mentioned you touched on it, which was the FLEURIEU conversations that took place. Can you tell me what was achieved out of that and what happened with the information that came out of those conversations?
Yeah, so we've been funded by the state peak body, Volunteering SNT, to actually look particularly regional areas. So there is some nuances with the regional areas, but they're experiencing the same decline. But
things that are different down on the FLEURIEU, obviously that older population, so they're kind of seeing more loss of volunteers. We're going to feed that up to volunteer in SANMT as a state peak body. Hopefully then they're going to feed it into national strategies and things like that. But it's been really beneficial, if nothing else, to bring the volunteer coordinators together and for them to just have that, feeling of they're not alone, and to share ideas about different strategies that they've done. We held one of the conversations this morning as it happened, and one of the participants said, we're trying to work with GPs, trying to kind of do an informal social prescribing model where GPs actually, prescribe volunteering to relevant patients. So yeah, it's early days, but we're just hoping to bring everybody together and see how we can tackle the problem.
Absolutely. Thank you. And my final question is around the national strategy, which you sort of touched on as well. So do you see that if this notice of motion is successful tonight, the information that comes out of that could help assist and formulate that strategy? Do you see that as a pathway?
Definitely. So both with the state and the national strategy for volunteering, they're very keen on getting the experiences from on the ground and hearing from people. So there's lots of mechanisms to feed into those strategies and give examples. Certainly the national strategy is wanting stories from volunteers, volunteer managers, that kind of thing. So yes.
Councillor Eaton?
Yes, thanks for your presentation. Look, I guess it's about getting out there and spreading the word. Would your organisation be prepared to be involved in some public events that we have? For example, we've got Australia Day breakfasts coming up, and there's 3 held across the city of Onkaparinga, and we also have an Australia Day fair. Now, there's an opportunity for you to actually look at putting a stall in, say, at Happy Valley Oval in the morning, and then considering the Australia Day fair and having a stall there, because you'll have lots of people coming along, and clearly we are suffering. I mean, from a neighbourhood watch perspective, we're finding neighbourhood watch groups are folding as a consequence of it. And certainly one of the things we're looking at the Happy Valley Oval Australia Day breakfast is trying to get all the CFS units that are in the area to actually come along to educate the public.
Question, Councillor?
So no, it's an example of what we could do, and you could actually be involved in that sort of process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. That's great. Appreciate it. Councillor Drew. Not well. Try the next. Yeah, okay. I think it was 11 that was doing well.
Thank you for your deputation, and I really appreciate the work that both you and Councillor THEMELIOTIS have been doing together. My question is around how it's definitely a common trend, like the data keeps telling us that this is an ongoing problem for many organisations and many communities. And I wondered if there's been any partnerships with universities, or is there a strong evidence base around some ways in which we could be engaging better with volunteers and changing the way we're doing things? Because obviously it needs a reform in a way, because the old ways of just hitting the pavement aren't kind of working.
Yeah, Volunteer in Australia commissioned quite a lot of research. I don't know that there's kind of like a distinct answer. It seems to be a really wicked problem, and there's lots of factors in play. But yeah, certainly I know remember which uni it is, one of the New South Wales ones, is doing something specifically around regional volunteering and the declining numbers around regional areas. So we're going to feed that FLEURIEU information into that. But yeah, it's I think if you asked anybody in the sector, nobody would be able to give you a perfect answer as to what is going on. But other than to say there is definitely something going on, and the numbers have been in decline for some years now. So I think it's an opportunity if we held an event here just to hear from the organisations and
you know, maybe people have got some really innovative ideas that could sort of stem the decrease, I suppose. Yeah.
Thank you. No further questions. And you know, you've got a good friend in the council, and we appreciate the work you do in the leadership around volunteering, and hope we can continue to support you in your role. All righty, thank you. Our last deputations for this evening are from the Onkaparinga Dementia Friendly Alliance, and I think it's Kay and Jan who are going to join us for this. Councillor Drew, I think that's a good idea that you stay exactly where you are. Paul, do you want to move to 20 over here at some point? You don't need to do it yet. We can, I'm just going to check with, yeah, let's see how we go. If Councillor Drew, if you want to stay at 11, all right, that'd be great. So please make our friends Kay and Jan welcome. I'm glad that you're here this evening. You've got 8 minutes, as you know. I believe we've got a short video as well as part of the presentation. So the time is yours. Off you go.
Thank you. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our deputation. I'm Kay Martin, the Secretary of our Alliance and a full-time carer for my husband, Colin. With me is Jan Jacobson, who is our IT coordinator and webmaster. You have got a copy of our deputation and one of our brochures in front of you. About us. 4 years ago, a small group of people formed our alliance. We are a mix of people living with dementia, their carers, and passionate volunteers. We connect people living with dementia and their carers with other like-minded people. Excuse me, and provide a safe place to socialise twice a month at Elizabeth House. We provide games, entertainment and social outings on a regular basis, offering fun and friendship. We advise carers on the help available within the community and share information within the group. Our aim to make the Onkaparinga area dementia friendly by informing and increasing awareness of dementia to businesses and services within our area. Our hope is to assist people with dementia and carers to feel safe and secure when accessing facilities within the community. Relevance to the council regarding us and what we do. Having the support and backing of the council would assist us with our plight when providing education to the wider community. What do we expect from council as a result of this deputation? Our hope is that the council would see fit to educate their staff on the value of understanding dementia. It would be beneficial to our alliance to have support from council when approaching all council-run and owned facilities to educate their relevant staff and volunteers on understanding dementia and how to interact with people living with this disease. What will be the benefit to the community as a result of council becoming dementia friendly? To be the largest populated council in South Australia, to have recognition by Dementia Australia as a dementia friendly organisation will help convince other businesses and community services to educate their staff and volunteers, making the Onkaparinga area a safe and inclusive place for people living with dementia or a disability feel less isolated and more inclusive with daily living. We would now like to show you a short video that shows how a person living with dementia often acts and how a responsible and informed business deals with the situation. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Welcome to our new branch. We have made some significant changes. So off to my right are the ATMs. I just want more money. Oh, well, certainly, sir. We have the ATMs over there and the counter is just here. I just want my bloody money. Sir, please don't talk to me like that. I'm just trying to help.
Hello, sir. My name's Sue. What's your name?
George.
Well, good morning, George. Would you like to come and take a seat over here, George? And we'll sort out your money for you, okay? George, have you got any ID with you?
I've got a driver's license.
To be excellent. Thank you.
I want it back.
Well, of course you'll get it back. Now, I'm just going to take this over to the teller and she'll arrange your money for you, okay?
Okay.
Bronwyn, could you bring up our customer George's profile on screen, please? Okay. George, would you like to come over and see Bronwyn here and she'll make the necessary arrangements to get your pension, okay?
Right.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
George, your wallet.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for all your help.
Not a problem at all. I'm glad we got it all sorted. Have a nice day.
Well, thank you.
See you next time, George, and you take care. Okay?
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
As you can see, that's video was done with a council from Western Australia who became Dementia Australia. And we asked them if we could use their videos, to which they obviously gave us the okay. I just noticed, I looked around the room where this was playing, that it looked like quite a few of you was quite touched by what you saw. It's surprising every time we show it to how people react. Quite often we see slight tears in people's eyes, pure and simply for the fact that it's hit a sore point and they can familiarize themselves with.
You've got to. Yeah.
Some questions.
We're happy to take questions. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Lynn. Oh, it works. Thanks, Jan, and thanks, Kay, for coming and giving a beautiful moving presentation. It's certainly a trigger for myself watching that video. So thank you again. I have a few questions. In particular, I'd just like you to share, if you can, your community cafe. What do you hear and what do you share in your, with your community cafe?
Basically, we get a group of people that turns up on a regular basis. It's a clothing sort of attendance, because you just don't know how people feel on the day. It can go anywhere from about 10 to 15 to 30 people. And we obviously have people that they're okay, they get ill, and eventually they sort of drop off and don't come anymore. But we have a floating membership. Our membership's probably around about the 70 to 100. That's just come through the doors. A regular pop somewhere around about the 30. And we play games, listen to music, have singers, just generally just outings, just generally trying to make you feel comfortable with everything we do. So it's a happy atmosphere.
Thank you. You mentioned previously uncharted waters experienced by carers. Can you expand on that?
I can actually. Dementia is an unknown journey. Everybody's is different. There are no rule book or guidebook for carers on how to manage changing behaviour. Unexpected things arise daily. That is why it's very important for people living with dementia and their carers to meet with like-minded people who understand what they're going through and can give this support to each other.
Thank you. What information do your awareness sessions provide? Sorry.
How a person with dementia feels and how they would like to be treated and accepted when accessing services within the community. Often these people living with dementia still live alone with no carer or support. it is important that businesses are aware of how to communicate and help people with dementia. We have conducted approximately 35 information sessions within the Onkaparinga Council area to community centres, libraries, retail businesses, physicians, GPs, physios, independent villages. We have informed approximately 550 attendees at these sessions, which have mainly been conducted within the last 2 years. At the end of our presentation, where we show 3 videos altogether, we have an informal discussion after our presentation, and it's quite amazing when our committee group that attend share their own experiences with the audience. It relaxes them and they feel confident to be able to talk about their problems. And often that's the very first point that these people have realise that they have got an issue, and they suddenly think, where do I go to get that support? So that's what those sessions are about.
What I could add to that too, already here today, some of you know, but when you tell a person with dementia,
not always.
Put it like that, I have to be one of them.
Yeah.
You just live with it and just move on.
Thank you for sharing all of that with us. One last question. What are you most proud of, and what are your reflections of the last few years?
That's a good bit of that. I'm exceptionally proud of the fact that the original committee members, which was about 8, some of them living with dementia and their carers, have worked so hard together for the Alliance, and after 4 hard-working years, we have achieved so much. We've been successful with several grants, in particular 2 from Dementia Australia, and this has allowed us to provide outings, entertainment and support to our cafe members who often don't have any other social connections. We've also very proud of the fact that we've been recognised by Dementia Australia as the biggest working, not the biggest number, of people in an alliance in Australia that is doing more than any other state. So we're very proud of that.
Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We'll have now moving into the section of the agenda, which is the reports of committees. If you're following in a digital version, it's page 29, and Audit and Risk Committee minutes of the 9th of November. Councillor Pritchard.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Do you wish to speak to it?
Just a quick note. Obviously, I've fallen back into bad habits.
Yes, I'd like you to work on
just quickly to say that the Audit and Risk Committee has talked about a number of the items that are coming up later in tonight's agenda, including the NOARLUNGA Aquatic Centre, the ALDINGA report, and the climate policy. And so hopefully members have had a chance to see the minutes and the comments made by the Audit and Risk Committee about those items.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that report? Councillor Platten?
Happy to second.
Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Any questions? I'll put Councillor Pritchard to Mr. Coles. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Our next item is item 8.2, which is, as I'll just remind councillors that this is a relatively new second edition of inviting the ARC presiding member to provide a report for us. Councillor Pritchard.
Happy to move as written.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak?
I do.
Go ahead.
Just one additional point on the minutes that's in here from Chairman, and that is around the format of the meeting. So this meeting was our first meeting that was held next door in the Gilbert room. And I think the consensus from everybody in the room was that it was much more free flowing and still achieved all of the outcomes that we wanted to. So I know that the committee is very grateful for that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bell, just like to second. Thank you very much. And thank you for being proxy too for this meeting, I think it was. Any questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried. Thank you, everyone. Item 8.3, on a trifecta here, Councillor Pritchard.
I'd like to move as written.
Would you like to speak?
I said very quickly, but yes, I will.
Thank you. Go
very slowly. Hopefully all the council members have had a chance to have a look at these minutes as well, or this information report. It's a bit of a new format that's been trialled with, so very happy to take any feedback back to SWARA. Specifically keen, that we were keen to demonstrate the diversion of waste. And so there is a nice big bar graph that has shown the last 3 months of diversion. So that is all waste that comes into the facility, and then the amount that goes through the recycle, so the Smurf, and then the amount that is going through the Southern Recycle Centre, the SRC, which is taking off the organics to use for capping. So some really good numbers there. Obviously later in the agenda we're talking about circular economy and how we can continue to do better with waste. A couple of other points. So we're well into going for stage 10, which is the next bit of landfill space that's going to be available for the region for the next period of time. So that gives us another sort of 10 years worth of landfill space, depending on how quickly we decide to fill that up. And so we're actually using quite a bit of in-house resource to develop that, which is great, which is reducing the cost. And SWARA is looking for an internal audit function and actually partnering with the Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Authority to share that cost and procurement activity. So there'll be an internal audit function going forwards. And lastly, what isn't in the constituent report is that we just bought a new dump truck, which is really exciting. And I think that is might even be delivered this week. So there you go.
Thank you very much. Everyone loves a new dump truck. Councillor Platten, are you
happy to second?
Do you have any questions to the debate? Councillor Pritchard, do you want to close? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And please pass on our thanks to all of the members of the board, and a happy Christmas to everybody on our behalf. We really appreciate all the work that's going on there. We're now moving into the section of the agenda, which is the reports of officers. So the digital version, that's page 51, commencing there. And the first item here is the appointment of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Platten.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move, if I can, one, that Council appoint Councillor Dew as the Deputy Mayor.
Apologies, sorry, Councillor Platten. Do we have is Councillor Dew willing to accept the nomination? Okay. Would you like to remove yourself?
Yeah, I'd like to declare.
Yes. Thank you. Can someone assist in that process? There's a lot of energy in that corner. I'm not sure whether two past deputy mayors should be sitting next to each other. I may review that in the break. Councillor, thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? There being no other nominations, can we declare with unanimous approval? We have to move the motion, yes, and it's declared with acclaim. Thank you very much, or unanimously, or whatever that is. Thank you. Will someone go and find the new Deputy Mayor? Yay, thank you. You don't take your office just quite yet. So thank you. And I'll use this as an opportunity to also vote of thanks to Councillor Platten for his excellent deputising, and thank you. Item 9.2, the frequency of council meetings. I don't believe there is an update. Do I have a mover, Councillor THEMELIOTIS?
Yes, just to move as written.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor EATON. Thank you very much. Any questions? Any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Audit and risk. This is an elected position, and so I'm just seeing if there is someone willing to move with some. Councillor Fisher.
I move the current incumbents.
So that's Councillor Yeomans, Councillor Pritchard, and Councillor Bell as proxy.
Yep.
There's no material interest for this committee. Any of you declaring any other interest? Councillor THEMELIOTIS?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Did they want to leave the room? No.
No, because there's no.
Have they all accepted the nominations? Councillor Yeomans, Councillor Pritchard, Councillor Bell. No, you're not Councillor Wilkes, you're Councillor Bell. Would you like to speak?
I just wanted to give an opportunity to a couple of people in the room or more who might be interested in the proxy. I can recall that Councillor Stafford was interested last year, and I'm wondering whether Councillor Davis would also be interested. Only because I like the idea of everyone having an opportunity.
Okay, so we currently have the motion on the table, and Councillor THEMELIOTIS has seconded the motion. That's really lovely suggestion. So it was a question, but we do have a motion before us. And so to keep the order of business there, I am going to see if Councillor Fisher is willing to move this motion. Yes, he has. All right. So I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Motion's carried. Thank you, everyone.
And hang on a minute, while we need to move another little motion for their appointment date, because we didn't do that.
So the appointment date is till the end of, it was for 2 years originally. Yeah, so are we happy to move that for the, so to just. Can you just move that with the date in it?
Just.
Councillor Fisher, are you just happy with that date, that revision to be just that we add in the date for 2 years? That's it. Yeah. Seconder, thank you, Councillor THEMELIOTIS. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, the extension of appointments of presiding and independent members to the Audit and Risk Committee. So just a little tiny moment of clarification. So making sure that people don't all fall due at the same time, having a rolling approach. Councillor Pritchard.
Happy to move as written for those reasons that you just mentioned.
Thank you. Councillor Greaves.
I've actually just got a question.
Go ahead.
All right. So the remuneration paid for the meetings and informal gatherings attended. Can I have an example of what those informal gatherings may look like?
Through the chair, so similar to what elected members attend as elected member sessions. I think we've only had one in this last term of the ARC, but if we are asking our ARC independent members to turn up to an informal gathering or an information session, then they should be paid accordingly.
So for instance, I think the chair attended one of our EM sessions to support our development as well. Does that answer the question? Yep. Councillor Greaves.
Thank you. Yes, I am happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor June.
I just wondered if that language, that terminology is prescribed, or if it can actually be more distilled, because someone's interpretation of reading that might think that it's a informal meeting where, you know, it's on the ratepayer purse. So just wondered if it could actually, I know it's a bit tricky now because we're down the process, but I guess it could be, yeah.
Perhaps it's in the terms of reference, it's in the Act, so it's we can manage it in that way. Yep.
Okay, sure.
Any further questions? I'll put the motion. Councillor Pritchard, did you want to comment? All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. And they do such a good job for us. We've been really well served. The Australia Day Award Committee membership. Do I have a mover and some nominations? Unfortunately, I have to be on this committee, so you don't have to appoint me to it. Councillor Eaton.
I'd certainly like to nominate myself.
Go ahead.
And just on that point, I have sat on it every year since I've been elected, and I find it right worthwhile. It gives me a better understanding of what people are doing. Thank you.
Apologies, Councillor Eaton. We'll do the Australian Day and then we'll come back. Can we do that? Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I jumped to item, but let's just finish with the Australia Day. Is that, when do we think we were doing? Going back to number 5, 9.5? I said Australia Day, so I was in the wrong spot. Let's go back to the agenda, which is, I apologise, Councillor Eaton, that was my error. 9.5, the CEO Performance Management Committee membership. Councillor Platten.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move if I can. Is it possible to have a show of hands of people that want to be on it? Because I certainly want to be on it.
So at the moment, we've got Councillor Bell, Councillor Dew, Councillor Fisher, Councillor Platten, Councillor Davis, Councillor Eaton and Councillor Stafford. I appreciate your excellent, efficient methodology.
Thank you.
Are you nominating these people?
Yes, please.
They've all said yes. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Dew, are you seconding that? I've now lost everybody. Okay, Councillor Dew, are you seconding that motion? No, this is, we were doing that in 2 halves, sorry. The draft terms of reference, we can do it all together, that's all right. Are you seconding all of that? I'm being very sloppy, apologies everyone. Let's just be really clear what we're doing, for my sake. We're doing 9.5, moved by Councillor Platten. The members are myself, Councillor Platten, Bell, Dew, Fisher, Davis, Eaton and Stafford, and the terms of reference are as they appear as attachment 1, which Councillor Dew has seconded. Any questions? All those in favour? All those against? Thank you for your patience. My poor performance there. 9.6, Australia Day Award. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
I would like to nominate Councillor Eaton, Councillor Davis and Councillor Stafford.
Eaton, Stafford, Davis. Are they all willing to be members of that committee? Councillor Platten, did you want to comment?
I'd be very happy to second that.
You'd like to second that? With this high, would you like to know? All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I'm impressed. 9.7, the Civic Receptions and Events Policy Review. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Greaves.
Yes, happy to move. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Second.
Any questions? Councillor Greaves, did you wish to comment? All those in favour? Against? Carried. The draft final presentation review report. So this is the report around the electoral boundaries of our council. Councillor Eaton.
So I'm certainly prepared to move as written.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak?
Well, just look what it does. It evens up, and it also evens up the representation, and it also gives some boundary reform that can ensure that there's a similar sort of structure within each ward. So I'm talking about community centres and ovals, multi-use ovals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Greaves?
Thank you. Yes, happy to second. And I guess I will provide a couple of comments. This is probably my 4th rep review in my time in this chamber. Suffice to say, Knox Ward used to encompass O'Sullivan's Beach and Lonsdale. So things have changed significantly, and for the better, I have to say. My only underlying concern is the poor people of Old Ranella, who seem to be shafted every single election cycle. You know, they almost need that to almost need their own water. They're not going to give them that. But yes, I think this was a really good outcome. I think this is the right outcome, maintaining pretty much what the status quo is. And it's working very well. Certainly from my perspective, it's a really healthy distribution across the council area and a really healthy chamber. So more than happy to maintain it. And I guess, look, so long as come next election cycle, we're very clear with the poor old residents of Old Ranella which ward they are going to be voting in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fisher.
Parliament that they are part of. Speaking for the motion.
Question or debate?
Debate.
Okay, your time starts.
Thank you. So I agree that the revision of the particular boundaries made sense. The district alignment or suburb alliance was one of those things that swayed me. So with Happy Valley is in Happy Valley, and we're part of Happy Valley elsewhere. There was that stretch down South Road of Darlington, which is at the boundary with Marion, which is often a neglected part of the city, and certainly it leaves Pimpana and is capably rescued by Thalassa in respect to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton, do you wish to close debate? Oh, sorry, Councillor Plotton.
That's okay.
We get fast on
debate, please.
Okay, off you go.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a leaf out of former Deputy Mayor's Councillor Fisher's book and due to a portion of Brunella, which the Mid-Coast Ward has been realigned and we've lost my parents actually. So they were solid voters for me and I hope that they will be solid voters for anyone in the Knox Ward.
Thank you for your generosity and I look forward to knocking on their doors as well. I will put the motion. Councillor Eaton, do you wish to close the debate? All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Can the records record that so that there's no further confusion by anybody in any future chamber that you were not unanimous in your support for sharing the load there. Climate risk policy and climate risk report, just reminding you what we heard from the ART and Councillor Pritchard's comments that this has been well canvassed in their committee as well. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Pritchard.
Happy to move as written.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This has been through the ARC, and I think this is one of the benefits of being on the ARC. You get to review some of these policies multiple times, and yeah, this one's a really good one for us. It's recently developed. It is quite innovative and is helping us move forward with regards to climate risk and how the council can respond going forwards. And then the attached climate risk reporting, which we have had the table before, but the detail that's in this report and the way it's broken down into our key asset types is really easy to read and works good.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to second and just briefly, just to say that I'm very proud to read the report and I congratulate the staff and council for the work that they've done in putting all this together. I think it really does address what the community have been looking for some years, and also council have been working on this for probably longer than the time that we've been here, myself at least, and those of us who are new. So congratulations again. It's a really good document, and I think it really addresses all the risks associated that we have to ensure that we consider for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard, did you wish to close? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And we indeed should be really proud of this piece of work, and please pass on our thanks to the staff. It's been it's an exemplary piece of work that we can share with our friends and peers across the whole sector. The Local Heritage Code Amendment, there's no updates to this extraordinarily lengthy document, thorough and reminding us what we're doing tonight. We're approving it for community engagement for that second part. And Councillor EATON.
Yes, I'll certainly move it as written. Look, it gives us really a comprehensive understanding. Just one thing I'd like to include in it, in your consultation, and it relates to Clarendon. We have the Clarendon Community Association, but it is also important to include the Clarendon Historic Hall and Museum, because they're the ones that have got the focus on heritage in the Clarendon area. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Bell, seconding. Yes. Did you have a question? Any further questions? I'll put the motion. Oh, Councillor Eaton, just to close. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried? Is that you just missed it? All right. You do know you need to vote. Do I need to remind you about that? Oh, great. Okay. And good luck. And we look forward to hearing how it all goes. And Councillor Eaton was referring to it last night at the Northern Forum, and including the 300-year-old tree that is a very personal favourite of many of us. Okay, 9:11 is the Aldinga Library and Multi-Use Centre, and we have Councillor Yeomans.
I'd like to make an amendment to that, if I can.
Go ahead. Have you provided the amendment to the team?
I'll be scared not to.
Very good. I'm pleased to hear that. Excellent discipline.
So, if I can just everyone have a quick look at it. It's really just knocking out that number 4. You can still read, but my proposal would be to take that one away and just add those words there. Point number 3 that I've added in yellow.
All right. Do you wish to speak to the motion now?
Yes, I can. I can. Yep. I'll start my debate by asking a question. What's the rush in extending the lease? From the report, the Aldinga Library is a purpose-built facility constructed in 2017. Council entered a 10-year lease with Ashford Holdings Proprietary Limited in 2017, and the lease is due to expire in February 27. The lease includes an option for Council to extend the lease for a further 10-year period to 2037. I appreciate the lease would need to be extended prior to the expiry, at least 6 months, with a 6-month minimum from memory. But why do we need to commit to a further 10 years when we still have over 2 years remaining? If I just refer to a couple of comments that the chairperson of the ARC made in his report on page 44 in relation to the Aldinga Library and Multi-Use Centre, where he states here, however, there was a reluctance by the ARC to support bringing forward consideration of the build and own option ahead of the finalisation of the Community Facilities District Plan, which we understand will inform future community facility provision in the Aldinga area. And also in relation to the advice from the ARC that you see on page 236, and just a couple of snippets out of that, from the ARC advice, that the Council's approach in leasing in the medium term to allow more broad review of its community requirements in Aldinga is sound. That it's not feasible to investigate, consult, design, fund and construct a new library and multi-use centre before the end of this current lease in February 27. Council should be in a position to evaluate the lease versus build by the end of the renewed lease and to consider exploring leasing options with the lessors. My notice of motion back in 23rd of January this year resolved that a report be presented to Council within 9 months that considers Council constructing a fit-for-purpose multi-use build at Aldinga that is responsible to future needs of the community and is best practice to address the leasing challenges and dispersed nature of facilities at Aldinga. In October, a report was presented to the Chamber that addressed that NOM, but also included a recommendation to potentially extend the lease of the existing facility. This seemed a bit rushed, and is one of the reasons I was keen to seek advice from the ARC. And we're being asked the same thing here tonight, whereby we are authorising the CEO to potentially extend the lease of the Aldinga Library beyond the current lease expiry period, taking into consideration the Community Facilities District Planning and the long-term financial plan. I make this point we are the decision makers, and we the decision makers do not yet know what is contained in the Community Facilities District Planning in relation to ALDINGA. The report states on page 234, the early work relating to the community space offering at ALDINGA, Haythini College, will be refined through a further Community Facilities District Planning currently underway. Detailed consideration is required to inform future community facility provision in the ALDINGA area, taking into account the work will be presented to Council in the first half of 2025 as part of the Community Facilities District Planning across the region. Given the overlap and synergies between these pieces of work, it is recommended that any design and analysis work on the relevant community facilities in ALDINGA is suspended until after the Community Facilities District Planning process is completed, which will include strategic directions for community facilities in our Southern District. I think this rationale should also apply to potentially extending the lease. The exposure report certainly put the spotlight on this council's financial situation and enhanced community expectations that this council needs to spend money responsibly. The community needs confidence and comfort that we're spending their money responsibly. For that reason, I don't think we should be making financial decisions without all the information that may be available to best inform that decision.
Thank you. Well done. 1 second to spare. Very impressive. I've got a question just before I take the next, before I call. Except I'll just check, Councillor Drew, have you got a question or you? Oh, I might ask my question if that's all right. And that was really to do with the translation of item 3 in the, this is a question for staff. Just given the timing of the leasing, would you have enough time to do what needs to be done through, who's going to take that? You. Thanks, Matt.
I might make a start and the CEO may want to join in. The discussion and information provided in the reports to date have related to the potential for council to plan, design and build a new library facility. So the timeframes and need for some decision and direction relate back to the time we would require to complete that process. It's a 2 to 3 year process for us to have a new library facility up and running. So if the decision through this report is to not commence work on that, and there remains a desire to continue to provide a library facility in ALDINGA, then leasing is the natural outcome, I guess, of that process. The current lease ends in February 27, and we do need some time to negotiate that lease. I think it's something like a 6-month notice period, but we'd probably like 12 months by the end of that lease to be in the negotiations and discussion about a new lease and the terms of that lease. The phrasing of the recommendation in the agenda was intended to provide that direction that we aren't any longer pursuing planning, designing and building a new library at this point in time, and that we would look at the likelihood that we'll be entering a new lease agreement, with the wording also trying to accommodate that there will be community facilities planning work coming in the meantime, but authority for the CEO to be able to, in consideration of that work, potentially enter a new lease for the library. So it's trying to understand that in the absence of a decision to do something different, then that would be the, I guess, default position that council would be choosing. So.
Through the mayor elected members, there's a practical time element to this. I think a lot of the points that that Councillor Yeoman's raised was discussed at the ARC meeting, particularly around the practicalities of the lease and when that expires. Certainly the community facilities work will help identify infrastructure needs in the south, particularly in ALDINGA, as well as across all the other suburbs, and that would be useful information. With that information in hand, there's still going to be a need to execute the lease given the practicalities of the time associated. One of the elements that the ARC had asked management to consider, and we will be considering, is how long that lease is extended for and the costs associated under that lease arrangement in terms of trying to get it the best deal we can for the community. So that's still our plan to negotiate that. The practicalities are that we're not going to be in a position to, in the ARC's words, investigate, consult, design, fund, construct a new facility before the lease expires. So it's trying to balance those practical elements with, yes, providing further information, and you're really in the short to medium term trying to negotiate the best deal we can in terms of that lease arrangement.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. Councillor Drew.
As
You had a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As this currently stands, is there anything in there that precludes Onkaparinga and the CEO to negotiate or discuss the current arrangement?
Through the mayor, removal of the previous motion 4, I think effectively means that I don't have any mandate to extend the lease of any nature without coming back to the chamber. So the report that you have now would effectively be brought back after this work, but with the intent of, I don't think much substance change around executing a lease of some form.
But you can, yeah. Can it form the facilities management work, the community facilities district planning? And part of that, forming that picture of what's happening, can a discussion, do you need council to direct you to do it, or can it be done as part of a process of?
Yeah, elected members, I guess, for expediency, we were seeking some authority for me to negotiate and deal with the lease to extend it to meet the practical timelines, given that the lease expires within 24 months. The facilities management work piece will bring further data, but I don't suspect it will change the short to medium term path of the lease option because of the costs involved in trying to get a new library of that magnitude and scale off the ground. So I think the motion that we've got before us basically means that it delays that ability for us to execute on a lease that will be inevitable at some point in the not distant future.
So I think a question might be, is the CEO empowered through the planning work to negotiate? And what you're saying is, but not without the direction of the chamber.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it.
Okay.
And I'll just, include that.
Want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you. I will second it because I do believe that we don't have the whole picture yet, and I do appreciate staff's work up until now, knowing that this has been a historical issue and has been raised by community since our term and probably prior to that as well. I want to acknowledge, in a way, I'll take some ownership of the lack of direction maybe I've provided in the workshops that you have conducted with us, in that I don't know what the solution is, and I don't feel like we have actually arrived at what the solution is to this. We probably do agree that maybe it's not financially sustainable for the long term for our community, and we want a better outcome for that. And so I feel like, not talking on behalf of the chamber, but for myself, that it would be in the best interest of our community if both of the issue or the development of a new facility and the conversation around what could leasing look like actually sit side by side. So, and getting more information around what that might look like in the future would be helpful, because, going back to the whole picture, one of the thoughts I had was that if we keep doing the same thing and the further we go down the rabbit hole, the more I feel like we wed ourselves to this is our only option, and maybe it is, but I don't know if we know that, and maybe we do know that, but I'm still not quite convinced. We might not have an alternative yet, and down the track, like I've just said, we still might not, but I don't think we have all the information to lock us back into a lease. I just also wanted to sort of make a little bit of comment about BYASS and the role that that will play in our facilities work. So it is very dependent on the principal, and I know that Onkaparinga has a deed with the Education Department, but operationally within that deed, it's about Onkaparinga having priority of use and access, but ultimately, by definition, we don't actually deliver sport and recreation services. So we don't necessarily have the ability to absolutely ensure that that space is utilised the way that it was initially intended. And it's definitely up to the principal of the day and the direction of the Education Department. Although Onkaparinga does have a seat at the table, I just think that we can't put all our eggs in that basket and think that's our solution to this. So yeah, I don't know the answer, but I think that if we can, if they can be viewed as side by side at this stage, that would be quite helpful for me anyway.
Councillor Pritchard, question or debate?
Debate.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to acknowledge Councillor Yeomans and the effort he's going to with regards to this facility and bringing it to the Chamber's attention. I have spoken to Councillor Yeomans many times about this, and I think, as Councillor G said, we're trying to find a really good outcome going forwards, and I think some of us are not convinced that the old situation was the best outcome. Having said that, the report in 2014 into the facility and all the options, was a fantastic document that's been through the Chamber and has been through the Audit and Risk Committee. I do think the original motion was missing the point around giving the CEO the option of trying to negotiate a better lease term, because I think currently we have just an option of a 10-year extension, and I think that concerns us, that that carte blanche direction is going to be very difficult to remove from the contract, but it's there, and I think that I'm not sure whether that is both the library and the youth centre, or if it's just, if we can negotiate them separately in bits and pieces. So I certainly understand, I think I understand where Councillor Yeomans is coming from in terms of trying to get more information. And I understand that 24 months is not a long time, but I think in this regards, we're all searching for a bit more information as to how we can get this whole area to have necessarily a better contract and a better outcome going forwards, and get the outcomes that we want. And I think it's good that we are approaching this the way we are in terms of really giving it some oversight.
Thank you. Councillor THEMELIOTIS, a question or debate?
Two questions. Question one, and I think the CEO may have touched on this. How far away are we from the Community Facilities District Plan process being brought back to the Chamber?
Through the Mayor, expecting information middle of next year, so 2025.
Okay, and my next question around the original point 4, which was to give the CEO authority to potentially extend the lease. Does that really preclude the CEO from having a conversation as well? It precludes him from getting approval or endorsement from the Chamber to extend, but does that preclude conversations still taking place?
Through the Mayor, I think and I'm happy to, it's obviously a decision for the Chamber. It was very explicit that the previous motion allowed some flexibility to negotiate the lease. Looking at the strict interpretation of what the words are there before, I would be negotiating outside of what's on the screen. But hearing the conversation, if that was the intent of the Chamber, then that would be acknowledged as we can do concurrently to start negotiations without actually signing anything off.
Negotiations would come back to the Chamber for enforcement, or
well, currently it would come back to the Chamber for approval.
So it won't, with or without negotiation, a final document still comes to us. Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd actually like to move an amendment if I could.
Have a go.
All right, thank you. Number 1, number 2 and number 3 remain the same. Sorry, my screen's just gone blank, so.
All right, it's appearing in front of you.
Yeah, no, I've got the old one here.
Yep.
And number 4, which will read, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to commence negotiations for the potential extension of the lease of the Aldinga Library, and the rest of the words that were in the original motion, beyond the current lease expiry period, taking into consideration the community facilities, district planning and the long-term financial plan. A new number 5. Notes that any final decision on future leases will be brought back to the chamber. And then number 5 becomes number 6, noting the feedback from the Audit and Risk Committee.
Yes, so 4 becomes 6.
Yep.
You want to speak to the motion? Hang on, let's just get this. I think we're okay.
Okay, yeah.
They've taken it out, on motions taking it out to do it in one, they're saying.
But there was no motion on the table before, so it's not an amendment.
No.
The intent, those motions to, that's the intent.
There was no motion. There was no motion.
I think it's okay. Yeah, I'm going to rule it in. But thank you for your attention to that.
So just one minor edit to that. Number 4 authorises the CEO to commence discussions.
Yes.
And I think the intent is negotiations, but for the wording, discussions.
So that's keeping the potentiality open, which I think is okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Members, look, I think it's quite clear from the report and certainly from the commentary provided by the ARC is that timing is an issue with this particular issue. While we don't want to close the door on the possible future of council entering into a new build or something else, should we find it, I do think it is really important for us to signal to our administration that from a pragmatic perspective, we do need to allow for discussion or negotiation around the best outcome for council. And look, I've no doubt in my mind that the CEO and staff have heard loud and clear some of the concerns around previous decisions and this particular building. But I think we do need to give our administration the best opportunity to find the most practical and cost-effective solution for council going forward. As I said, it doesn't close the door on one thing or the other, but I do think we need to, signal that we are aware and we are going to give our CEO permission to actually undertake those negotiations.
Thank you. Councillor Platinum, question, seconding, debating. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to...
You're seconding the amendment, just so that everyone's clear.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to pay Councillor Yeoman's tribute for following this along. It's certainly a very big topic in his ward, and it's spoken about in, I think, all of our wards. What this aims to do is to allow our CEO to commence discussions, obviously, but it reassures the public that it will come back to the chamber for overview. And that's, I think, all from what I can understand, Councillor Yeoman's address to the chamber is what he was trying to achieve. And I think, I'm very happy to second.
I can see no further speakers, so I'm going to ask Councillor Greaves, did you wish to close? So the motion before us is the amendment. So all those in favour? The amendment's carried. That now becomes the motion, and I give the opportunity for Councillor Yeomans to close debate. Yes.
Hang on. That's over with the intent of this. What my concern was just going head on into a further 10 years on top of the 2 years we've got remaining without having all the information available. And this report clearly says there's more information coming, particularly in relation to that communities, facilities, district planning report. I think it's really important that we do know exactly what that says, because it'd be a little bit silly, and I think we do need to consider that if that plan report provides information that supports a multi-use facility in Aldinga, it would be late to do something about it if we were already extended the lease out to 2037. And I think the other thing bubbling away too is that there are going to be a couple of big elections coming up, and with the expansion of growth in the south, there are certainly advocacy options available to us. And Councillor Pritchard's raised a couple of these points here, that there's a couple of other questions that need to be answered, and the CEO provided that advice to us as well, is whether the lease can be extended by a shorter period, such as 2 years and not 10, which might provide that flexibility that we may need if there is a better financial decision to be made in relation to what's better for Aldinga and the council and the ratepayers. That might be building a new facility. It'll give us that flexibility. And also, what leasing options do we have available if we do extend the lease, and can this be more effective and efficient from a council's perspective, considering the current state of our finances, because the leases are quite high. So, in short, there's nothing here that I'm saying that I don't think contradicts advice from the ARC. If anything, what I'm saying does support their advice, particularly in regard to the community facilities district planning and the consideration of leasing options moving forward. I just hold the view that we need to see the outcomes from the community facilities district planning prior to making the decision to extend the lease, particularly as it does appear we do have a bit of time on our side, and I can't see the lesser evicting us from the library anytime soon. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put this as the motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. I'm just offering, it's past our 8:30 time slot, so we'll have a 5-minute break and then we'll come back and continue to do the work. I would just like to check, I know that we've got our friends here still from the Dementia Alliance, so I'm wondering, I might put them up first if that's all right, if that meets everyone's expectations. So can I have a mover for a 5-minute break? Thank you, seconder. All those in favour, carried. So it was Platten and Greaves. So Greaves moved up and Platten second. I am exception for that for this evening, and so we'll do 11.5 now, and then we will return to the agenda item 9.12. So if we can go to Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for bringing this item forward. I'd like to start with a minor amendment that I provided earlier today, please, if it can be added there.
Yes, so you're moving this motion?
I'm moving the motion.
Is that the amendment you're expecting to see?
Yes, so
yep.
For the benefit of the other councillors, just to highlight that we've changed it, the point 1 slightly, that we seek to be one of the first councils in South Australia and having the greatest impact given our size and scale in South Australia. South Australia, is that meant to be in twice?
Okay, and
that's fine.
That's it. Great. And you'd like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, if I may. I want to acknowledge those in the gallery tonight who spoke and gave a deputation. Thank you to Kay and Yang, and Heather's in the back there with Andrew, one of our council staff. I want to acknowledge also all the staff that I can't mention, so many that have probably participated in really providing awareness and assisting Onkaparinga Dementia Friendly Alliance in doing their good work in a number of our facilities, Elizabeth House Positive Ageing Centre and Wakefield House Positive Ageing Centre. Essentially, Onkaparinga has already been working towards becoming a dementia friendly, and this is just really the next step, working with Dementia Australia to get a formal recognition. Councillors, dementia is not a normal part of ageing, but rather an umbrella term to describe a set of symptoms caused by a disease, a disease of the brain, essentially. It can affect short-term memory, It can cause loss of mental faculties, which include judgment, ability to carry out daily tasks, and even the ability to swallow and speak. Symptoms can be slow. Language obviously can be affected, as mentioned. Many different types of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, small vessel and vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia, and Lewy body disease, which is essentially a build-up of protein deposits in the brain. And all of these diseases essentially impact on people's thinking, memory, and movement. This motion seeks to advance on the work that's already done by the Council and Onkaparinga Dementia Friendly Alliance. Importantly, it'll be raising awareness in the community, assist in accessing healthcare and culturally appropriate support services. In particular, for the individuals that are affected, it helps to assist and maintain some autonomy in their life, particularly those who are so severely affected by disability in completing daily tasks. It's really common that, unfortunately, their awareness of safety is a big issue. Their sense of meaning and purpose is affected, particularly if they are isolated in many ways. Part of this motion also highlights Dementia Action Week, an initiative that encourages everyone in the community to learn about dementia and how better to support those living with dementia. Taking these steps, as mentioned, ensures that the community, the city, becomes a safer and more welcoming space for those living and caring for those with dementia. I'm just looking at the time. I might leave it at that, and I'll close with something else, if I may. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you. Councillor Davis, question or debate? Seconding?
I'd like to second it, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Bell, and thank you very much for your deputation. It did bring a tear to my eye. I was quite amazed to learn that dementia is the leading cause of death in women, and having had a very close experience supporting someone with dementia, I feel it would be really beneficial for us to support the understanding and learning within the community.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard, question, debate?
Debate.
Go ahead.
I just want to thank Councillor Beryl for bringing this to the chamber, and I understand how much it means to her. And having it brought to our attention, it's just amazing that the prevalence of it in society, and coincidentally, long-term president of the McLaren Vale Tennis Club is suffering, and they're having a fundraiser for this organisation this Sunday. So it's amazing that it is starting to get out into the community more, and I think it's an amazing job that the Alliance is doing in raising that awareness, and if we can raise further awareness through this motion, then that's fantastic.
Thank you. Councillor Platten, question, debate?
Debate, please.
Go ahead.
So I too am incredibly happy to see this brought to the chamber. I said to Jan this evening that I don't think he could have got a better advocate in Councillor Bell, and I'm very. I had the privilege of going to speak to dementia, the Onkaparinga Dementia Alliance, who put the friendly in the alliance, and they certainly are a very active group. They asked me a lot of questions that I probably didn't have the answers to at the time, but friendly all the same. So I think we do need a greater understanding of dementia. We need a greater understanding in the way our customer service works, and I certainly like to see you support it.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher. Oh, no. Councillor Bell, just to close.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in closing, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. In the background of the motion, it does highlight that dementia is a terminal neurological condition predicted to be the leading cause of death in Australia. It is currently the leading cause of death in Australian women. As a nurse, I deal with and care for people with dementia every day. And the sorts of things that we ask in health, of course, is the why. And why are people at risk of death? And why is it indeed? And that's essentially a complex question, because it includes the fact that most people, as we age, we do carry a lot of chronic health conditions that go hand in hand, essentially. And if you are at risk of illness, you're at risk of complications. If you're at risk of injury, you're at risk of complications. Those with dementia are vulnerable and frail, as are the older they get. The final stages of dementia can lead to severe bodily dysfunction, memory loss, mobility, difficulty in chewing, swallowing, communication generally, incontinence, problem solving, and this coupled with chronic health conditions. If somebody has a fall, they're likely to hit their head, break a hip, break their ribs, develop pneumonia, develop sepsis, and various other conditions. Dementia thus lowers life expectancy. Most dementia-related deaths are therefore also generally preventable. But it is difficult to manage at home because for one reason or another, people don't necessarily see themselves as having an illness and don't necessarily accept assistance and help. So councillors, I just want to again acknowledge those in the gallery, Onkaparinga Dementia Friendly Alliance. This is a feather in their cap, as it is a feather in our cap. We'll bring this through. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We will now move to item 9.12, the Noarlunga Aquatic Centre upgrade. And do I have a mover? Councillor Platten.
Thank you. I'd like to move if I can.
Certainly. And there may be an update, but I'll let you move it. Do you wish to speak?
Do you want to do the update first or?
No, we can get that in a minute.
Okay.
You go ahead.
I just wanted to speak tonight. This obviously is an important asset for the whole of Onkaparinga, but it also falls in my ward. And I wanted to highlight that this, unfortunately, has been viewed by some in our community as an upgrade. It is an upgrade, but it's really a maintenance project at this point in time. And I think Councillor during February put a notice of motion up, which asked for upgrades. And if you read the report tonight, there certainly are some of those in there which have been proposed. The funding aspect of this motion, the 10.8 million with 5.4 million from federal funding, which is fantastic, is really to get this asset up to standard. And it's something that is so important, but I need my community to understand that it might not be all the bells and whistles, it might not be the water sides, but it's certainly needed. It's a roof renewal, solar energy installation, pool shell renewal, an upgrade to the filtration system, and a new electrical switchboard, which we need incidentally because we're putting solar on. The Noarlunga Swimming Centre, I think, is our highest consumer of energy in the council. These are essential works. They will future-proof the asset. And we're certainly having a conversation about cosmetic upgrades that would include a high proportion of the community. And And so I just wanted to make it very clear tonight, I'm very supportive of this. I think as long as we retain the serpent, you can have the mushrooms. But the serpent is very important to me. So I hope you will support it.
Thank you for your advocacy in the context of your debate. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Yes, happy to second. Can I just start with a couple of questions?
Go ahead.
I just want to talk about in the report, it talks about, what page am I? This will be 248 of the report. And it talks about the groups that utilise this facility. So it talks about learn to swim. It talks about the sporting groups that are in there. So Southern Performance Swimming Club is in there as well. What engagements, what conversations have we had with these groups around the future need, the potential upgrades and the impact on these clubs?
Through the Mayor. So look, it's been a very eventful couple of weeks for this project, and with the federal government funding announcement, we've got some more certainty in terms of the project proceeding. And with that, we can start making some firmer plans about timing. So tonight's a really important report in that we need to provide matching funding as a condition of that grant. So with approval of this report, should council wish to this evening, we then have the confidence to move through into the more formal processes of delivering the project. We have previously provided updates to the various stakeholder groups about the requirement to do some upgrades to the building, some renewal to the building. But at that point in time, timing was uncertain. And so it's only on the 2nd of December that we've confirmed the announcement of the funding from the federal government. And so our immediate and next steps will be to continue our engagement with those groups to start providing some more firm details about timing. This report describes a process whereby we'll be anticipating closure of the pool for the works in the middle of 2025 for potentially up to a 12-month period, depending on the builder and programs and response. But these are plans that have only really emerged and become more firm in recent days. And with approval tonight, we then have the confidence to be able to convey that more broadly to community groups. So as an immediate priority for us after this is to secure the formal funding agreement, but also start work with stakeholders on informing their timeframes and working with them on how we can minimise impacts.
Okay, perfect. I will debate really, really briefly. Like a lot of elected members, I think I might be partially surprised by this announcement, purely because the advocacy has happened through such a long period of time. And we've tried so hard, but I think what this chamber has done is a couple of things. It's taken advocacy a little bit different. So to us, it's not just the document. It's actually a little bit more than that. So some things we initiated as a chamber, we initiated the early intervention. So sending the mayor out on the road with the CEO and having those conversations really early. We've had elected members jump on board utilising social media and their contacts to drive conversation and get community involved. And one thing I mentioned multiple times, and I've mentioned it with the mayor as well around advocacy, is that we need community champions to win things. And that's what's lacking in this part for me. And I've already seconded the motion, so I can't really move an amendment. But the additional amendment would be to actually start bringing those groups on board, which probably should have been on board right at the start. Because for them, they're going to look at this, and just like Councillor Platten just mentioned, upgrading of solar, upgrading of a pump, upgrading of a roof, and all those sort of certain things, over 12 months, you open the doors, it's going to look the same. So it's not going to seem special. So that tells me another thing, that our advocacy actually hasn't finished yet. We've got another stage, and we've got to continue on with that advocacy. So that's only just one part of it. So elected members, I'm not really suggesting anyone move an amendment, but there really should have been a point in there that recognised those groups that already utilise the facility, who are hearing about this through the media and not hearing about this from council staff and being brought along with the journey. So I think that's an absolute failing. And I think going forward, if we're going to look at these big projects, if we don't bring these groups on board, they're going to get things in the media and then it instills fear. And I hate that thought of clubs feeling like they're going to lose their home or lose their facility or not know what to do. So I think there was a bit of an oversight there and some things that we could do better.
Thank you, Councillor. Seat 11, that is Councillor June. Question or debate?
I'll start with a question, thank you. Just in relation to what Councillor THEMELIOTIS said, if we had a working group as such, are we potentially setting it up to fail if we're not actually allowing them any room to tell us what would help, given there's quite tight parameters around how we're going to spend the money, given it's all must-haves?
So I might just answer that based on the question that we've got in front, the motion that we've got in front of us. So tonight's motion is about committing funding. That's the motion. We have a very serious community plan. We also have an entire team of staff who are fully responsible for the engagement. And many of us know that decisions and announcements can happen without any prior warning, but the community are very well engaged in knowing what's ahead for them. And I would expect that what you're suggesting is part of the process rather than the decision that's in front of you tonight. But if the CEO, anyone else wants to comment on that, you're very welcome to.
Thank you, just through the me, just to add that our advocacy efforts haven't finished, and the documentation we've been distributing to date both talked about the immediate renewal priority and funding we required, but also more aspirational opportunities. And so we're in the process now of updating the documentation information that we've been distributing with the intent to go back out and continue to pursue funding. And with the confidence about project and timing, I think we're in a better climate and place to be working with some of those groups, as mentioned, that we can partner up with. So I'm going through the mayor elected members. From my perspective, I'm fairly proud of the work the team's done to get to this stage. We worked up a whole lot of options. There was ample opportunity there if any state or federal funding wants to provide some more. There's been that much work on this project that I really don't want the staff to have a sense that we've failed in this project. We've actually, I think, reached a really good outcome to this point. This is a massive asset for the community, incredibly important. 270,000 people through the door. I think we've got about 80 or thereabouts swim schools. So I'm really actually proud of the work the team's done, and I think they've done a good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor, did you have another question or did you want to debate?
No, I'm ready to debate. Thank you. I do appreciate what Councillor THEMELIOTIS said, though, even though I asked that question before, but I understand that within the debate you could take things away. So obviously what was being said was around communication to stakeholder groups in an ongoing way and updating them, and then sort of reciprocal two-way conversations, not just us kind of telling them over time. What I think staff have done a tremendous job of doing, and the support of the chamber, is getting council to a readiness to be able to be ready to get the grant on in time, listen to our community, put something together that's really robust, and then also take on the motion that Dan referred to earlier, where we had some, our dreams of what needs to take place or what could take place next. And staff have done that and pivoted and really come up with a really solid piece. I think that the funding was a fantastic outcome for our community, and delivering more money from ratepayers money. I think that there's an expectation that we will do that, given the data and the statistics the CEO has provided. It's a well-loved resource of our local area. I am also thinking about what Councillor Platten said in relation to we could be closed up to 1 year, the items that will be adjusted and changed in that time are not things that the average punter is going to come in and see. There's a whole lot of investment that's happened here. And so I would really love to encourage staff to also be thinking about, and like the CEO did as well, state and federal government, to think about how we can add on and continue to create a really fantastic environment and invest in swimming down south by thinking about what else we might like for this site to be a site for the future and just not now. So at the moment, as Councillor Platten said, we are renewing, but there's definitely potential, hopefully in the near distant future, to think about the space being accessible. We heard tonight from deputations, a few deputations about inaccessibility in our community. Wouldn't it be fantastic if Noarlunga Aquatic Centre was more accessible? I want community to feel that when they come in that we've heard and listened to them, and that to me means that it feels different as they come in. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this continues to unfold, and I'm very appreciative of the work that's taken place.
Thank you. Councillor Yeomans.
Just got a couple of questions and then I'll just a couple of comments if I can. Just in relation to that first recommendation, this might be a question I know, is that $2.82 million from buildings renewal. I assume this can be catered for without creating a public safety risk or financial risk to projects that may have been allocated that funding in 25-26.
Do you want to take that on notice?
No, that's fine. Thank you. Through the Mayor, so additional cost pressures were identified for this project through our long-term financial plan. So additional funding was provided specifically for the swimming pool works that we're required here. So there'll be no projects that will be deferred that place a risk from a safety perspective.
On page 248, talks about based on consultant advice, priority works are required to manage key risks, including, and one of those is poor water turnover presents a risk to public health and safety. Are we able to state what water is being lost in this public forum? The report doesn't say it, but we've had that session, which is confidential.
Yeah, sorry, through the Mayor. That statement is in relation to the amount of water that's turned over within the pool. So the proposal is to split. Currently, it operates as one water body. So the whole, and it's probably below the modern standards of how much water turnover there should be. So the proposal now is to split the pool into 3 different water bodies and increase the water turnover. So yeah, that's just how much, how many times the pool.
I was just wondering, we were given some information on a confidential session. I'm just wondering that amount can be released because it is one of the risks that they're obviously talking about.
So it's a question around whether the information that has been provided in confidence has the capacity to be released in the public, into the public. So we may need to take that on notice, I think, because there were other variables attached to that, Councillor. Do you have a further question?
Yeah, I've got a couple more if I can.
Okay.
Page 246, it talks about the closure of the pools anticipated for approximately 12 months during the upgrade period, requiring careful communication with the stakeholders. Just wondering whether what plans or whether we have plans for the staff who won't be working at the pool for that 12-month period during the closure.
Through the Mayor, so that's an issue we'll be dealing with over the coming weeks and months ahead. So some initial planning has commenced, but it's ongoing and continued work we need to undertake further.
Yeah. And this might be a bit preemptive too, but in the Prudential report, page 271 of our agenda, one of the key issues and findings was that the cost report also does not include a provision for internal project management and planning costs, which will need to be capitalised into the project cost base once the project is completed. So do we know what those project management costs will be, and have these costs been considered as part of the financial implications in the report?
Through the Mayor, so they are costs for council staff who will undertake the project management, and they are budgeted, so there's no impact on from a long-term financial plan perspective. We capitalise the costs of those as part of a project completion process. So that is typically done anyway on a number of projects. So there's no concern from council's perspective that we'll be able to manage that within our budgets.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of comments if I can.
Go ahead.
All I'm going to say is that, without these upgrades, and I take your point, Councillor Platt, and the upgrades that need to be done, council will be forced to close the pool. This is money that we need to spend. This is not one of those nice to have projects that the council has spent millions of dollars on in recent years. Fortunately, as shown on page 252, the council's financial contribution to this upgrade can come from our budget process and not from increasing our debt or borrowings. Together with the funding from the federal government that's greatly appreciated, this project can commence. On finances, as reported in the Prudential report on page 301, The cost benefit analysis undertaken for the pool upgrade works finds a net benefit of more than $21 million related to the required upgrade works at the centre, which equates to around $2 for every dollar that we're spending, which is very pleasing. I also note that the ARC has reviewed the prudential report and has made a couple of relevant comments there that I'll just finalise. That the ARC committee note that the project will not proceed until additional project funding, internal or external, is secured, so that council's local contributions are within the amounts allocated in the long-term financial plan. That appears to have been done, which is great. And that the Audit Risk Committee noted advice that current risks are being actively monitored and managed through proactive maintenance programs, which again is very pleasing. So I certainly support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard, question, debate?
Just debate.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to support the motion and just comment on how exciting I think it is that this is all, to me, this has happened really quickly, and I think that's a credit to the staff, and it's a credit to the chamber and the way that we've approached this project over the last, I mean, we've been hearing about it for only 18 months to 2 years, and the staged approach and the review of the facility that's been undertaken, and we've been informed. Councillor Yeomans has produced some fantastic information with regards to that. The other thing I'd like to add is how, there's significant operational savings that are going to come from this upgraded facility, and I think that that's really positive, because that's all money that we can put back into the community once once we've got solar on the facility. That's, as Councillor Platten said, the highest user of electricity in our area, to actually be able to offset some of that and use those operational savings back in the community is a real benefit as well out of this project.
Thank you. Councillor Platten, do you wish to close debate?
Just to reiterate that this is a fantastic opportunity for one of our most used assets in our council area. A little tidbit of information in case you missed it: more people use that asset than we have residents. So it is something that is probably used and has been used by a majority of residents in our council, but probably people on the outside of our council boundaries as well. So kudos to staff for putting this document together so that we could go out and advocate, and the Mayor could advocate, and the CEO could advocate. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That motion is carried unanimously. I do want to also add my thanks to the team who prepared this. So this was a federal program called Thriving Communities. So we did know it was coming. We were ready, as others have said, to do a world-class application, because these things don't just happen because of advocacy. It also requires a lot of readiness by our team. So I do want to acknowledge all of that work and thank them very much, so that we were ready to take advantage of the opportunity as it arrived through that funding program. Item 9.13, Councillor Fisher.
Thanks, Mayor. Can I just ask Councillor Yeomans to turn his microphone off?
You can, and he has.
Thank you. And I'll move on.
Would you like to move this motion?
I'd like to move it as.
Thank you. And do you wish to speak to that? Go ahead.
Thank you. Councillors, as you will recall, at the meeting of 16 July 2024, we resolved that we submit an application to pursue recognition as a tree city of the world on completion of the tree management policy. To be recognised as a tree city involves a formal application outlining how the city meets 5 core standards of the programs. The City of Onkaparinga currently meets 4 of the 5 standards required for achieving that status, and the development of a tree management policy, which is next year A to this document, meets that final requirement. The draft tree policy was developed and circulated to internal stakeholders and industry experts for review and consultation. The policy is aligned with industry standards, best practices and relevant legislation to ensure our tree management and practice effectively manage risk while preserving our urban forests for future generations, and to ensure we follow a sustainable green city blueprint. Dot point 8 talks about timelines and deadlines. So from here, with the support of the Chamber, the staff will submit an application to recognise the City of Onkaparinga as a Tree City of the World in January 2025, subject to the approval of the tree management policy, which is attached. And then staff will implement the policy and its provisions and adapt internal systems and communication that reflect Council's policy position on trees. Elected members will be notified of the outcomes of the application to be known as a Tree City of the World. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Eaton.
Yes, I'll certainly support. What I would like to say is I do live amongst the gum trees and I live with the risk every day. But there's vast areas within the City of Onkaparinga that trees could go in and not necessarily eucalypts. I think that we can have a different type of tree in many areas. I'm also very mindful of the fact that if you've got the new ALDINGA app, the number of trees that I've actually seen in the last week coming down, not necessarily in our area, but areas adjacent to us, just shows the risk. So it's a matter of managing that risk, making sure that certain infrastructure like playgrounds and what have you aren't amongst the gum trees. They're the sorts of things that we need, and fitness areas and things like that we need to look at. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Pritchard, question, debate?
I have a question.
Okay.
Under section 8.8.4, tree removal, thanks to biodiversity in Granville and Friends of Warringah Basin, I have been looking at creeks lately. The significant ash trees in creeks and they're pretty big, and I'm not sure, I haven't had a chance to look at the Landscape SA Act 2019 to know, is an ash tree an environmental weed? And so can we remove them from creeks without impacting this policy?
I can see the excitement with that question here. Off you go.
Thank you. That is correct. They are environmental weed, and we can remove them as part of our normal removal process.
There will be joy in Councillor Pritchard's life. Thank you for confirming that. Councillor Fisher, do you wish to close?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think as a chamber we've demonstrated for our love of trees, and I don't say that flippantly, I think I said that up here before. There are risks associated with the tree canopy, but I think the stance that this chamber and council supported has been really, really significant. And we thank you, Bill.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Won't that be a thing to say, that we are a tree city of the world? Thank you. 9.14, review of the Environmental Protection Waste to Resources Policy 2010. Councillor Eaton.
Yes, I'm certainly prepared to move those.
Thank you.
Just one little amendment in our response, and it's just to update it. It's the community vision that on page 496 or 41 of the response, at 7.17.3, we actually talk about the community vision 2024. We need to amend that to 2034. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your attention to detail. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I will second. This is a very exciting motion that I support wholeheartedly. Very excited, especially about just the sentence at the top about beyond recycling, moving towards a more circular economy. I think that's pretty exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard.
It was just a question around, there's commentary in here around banning of products, and just wondering with regards to our response, if there was much in there about how we can assist our residents with regards to things like e-waste and batteries and asbestos and those sort of items that are not in our curbside collection, they're banned from landfill, and I'm not really sure how we can do better to assist our residents with regards to this policy.
Do you want to take that on notice, or are you prepared to answer that? Thank you.
Through the Mayor. I guess if you go through the whole context of our submission, a big focus is that it is not just about
putting it in the bin. There's a big focus on extended producer responsibilities and product stewardship schemes. There were some announcements today at a national level regarding batteries and making that a priority because of the number of fires that are occurring. So we will see a big push at that front end producer responsibility component, and that supports with education and also then end product availability, particularly for someone like the MERF, and where they're actually going to put the products at the end of it.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton, would you like to close? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. This is a huge piece of work, and it's also a huge piece of contribution to the sector's response as the local government association too. So thank you very much for the leadership that we're offering in that space. 9:15, Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Question.
Go ahead.
Can I find out when members of our potentially former First Nations Advisory Group were contacted to advise of the discontinuation of the First Nations Advisory Group, and what was the response that council staff received?
Through the Mayor, it was several weeks before the report was finalised, approved and put on the agenda. I rang each member that I could. Unfortunately, Les's number was no longer working. The general response was an understanding and acceptance of this as an outcome, and some questions around what Onkaparinga might seek to do next.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion.
Did you wish to speak to the motion?
Just briefly. And just to say that I appreciate the work that's gone into getting to this stage. I want to acknowledge the former chamber, the former mayor, acting mayor, and also the First Nations Advisory Group that participated in the initial project that put together the first Reconciliation Action Plan. I think, there was good leadership shown in at that stage, and obviously we've moved on and we've sought further advice, and we tried to bring them along and obviously sought to explain and have done so. So I'm confident that there's been adequate consultation in this process. And it is sad to not continue with the First Nations Advisory Group. However, it's very exciting with the next process that we're going into. So congratulations to everyone involved.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Pritchard.
I'm happy to second.
Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I think Councillor Bell said it.
Thank you. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Thank you. I'll debate briefly. In the previous chamber, when we discussed having a First Nations Advisory Group, which was probably quite rushed to make it happen, we're actually quite proud of it. It was our voice to this chamber, and it was an avenue that this council never had. And it's an avenue that council staff never had. And of course, like every group, it has its ups and downs and it has its differences. And you need to find a way of how one group does one thing and another group does another, and try and bring those together. And I remember when I was, I think, acting mayor, and I sat in a couple of meetings, and the dynamic of former councillor Sue Tonkin, the late former councillor Richard Peat, and Carl, Alina and Sue. And yeah, things got heated and fiery and questions were asked, but they always had I think there was a mutual respect. Somehow they made it work. For some reason it worked despite the ups and downs of the group. So I'm really quite disappointed by this. And what concerns me a little is that group members were called before a council decision was even made to say that we're discontinuing the group, which to me doesn't make sense. The decision should have happened first before telling them that was what was going to happen. The First Nations Advisory Group achieved a couple of things. We addressed dual naming, and why dual naming was important is because council was getting a lot of requests for dual naming from residents wanting to make a difference, but those dual names had nothing to do with the local area, no connection to the local area. this is where the First Nations Advisory Group came in and assisted with that. And I've heard in this chamber before it being raised that the information that we receive from our First Nations Advisory Group or from First Nations people is usually verbal. It's not written. So to be able to have that avenue of discussion was actually really helpful and insightful for someone like me. There was also a lot of discussion around cultural mapping. And one thing that made a huge difference in my community was the entrance point in Thalassa, where you see Flagstaff Roundabout. So those dual flags are only there from the initiation of a 9-year-old girl, Summer, from Aberfoyle Park, working with members of the First Nations Advisory Group to make that happen. And that was one of the biggest impacts our chamber has ever seen. And now a lot of my residents tell me it's like it was always meant to be. And it was just like it should have been there in the first place. So there was a lot of good that came out of it. So I'm really disappointed, not with council staff at all. I know there's been a lot of work that's gone into trying to make this work, create communication avenues. And yeah, I don't really know much more to say than I'm just truly disappointed that we couldn't make this work, because I feel like there was a huge opportunity here. But I do acknowledge that it takes two parties to make something work.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to check with staff just to see if there's any things we needed to correct in that information.
Mayor, thank you. Just to be clear, I didn't ring the members and advise them that the group would be discontinued. I advised them that there was a report going to council that would put forward a recommendation, among other things, that would be for council to consider and decide. So the decision rests with the chamber.
Thank you. Thanks for correcting the record. Councillor Bell, do you wish to close debate? Please, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that and acknowledge Councillor THEMELIOTIS, and a lot of really important things that she raised was some of the particular achievements of the First Nations Advisory Group. And obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is not about discrediting the work that council's done or the group, acknowledging that this is now the next step. And we thank and acknowledge all the work that is done by the First Nations Advisory Group, our First Nations people that live in this beautiful area that we live in. And I thank Councillor THEMELIOTIS for the work that she contributed as well. However, we are at the next stage, and I look forward to the next stage, and I hope that those who participated in the First Nations Advisory Group in the past will also participate in the future, because I think this will be a more open process. Thank you.
Thank you. I will put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Thanks, everybody. And now we are up to 9:16, CAT Management Survey Feedback Report. Councillor EATON.
Yes, I'm certainly happy to put the motion and as written. I mean, it's the detail is, I think, that the state government's got to wake up to itself. It's got a responsibility. And why should we have different bylaws across the state? And we heard from our board people today the issues that they've got in their submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Platten.
Yeah, very happy to second.
Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, if I can. Look, quite frankly, what we've got at the moment is a catastrophe.
Oh.
And I think that we need to stop pussyfooting around. And this report gives us purpose. And what it does is it shows that not only non-cat owners, but cat owners can see the benefits in containment. We've got 82% of cat owners. By the way, we had 1,400 respondents to this, which is a really good number of recipients to a Your Say from our community. 82% of cat owners have said that they would be happy with overnight containment, and 64% of cat owners supported full containment. I could go through all the numbers. Non-cat owners obviously supported it a lot more. But I think this sends a clear message to the state government that this is no joke, that this needs some leadership and they need to do something about it. We have hundreds of thousands of feral cats in our communities, and we have thousands of owned cats roaming around, destroying our native wildlife, which is already under an enormous amount of pressure from climate change. So let's get on with it and do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Drew. A question or debate?
Debate, thank you.
Go ahead.
I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Bell and also Councillor THEMELIOTIS, who have been in this for the long haul around cat containment. I have no funny ones though, but I do want to highlight something that was in the letter from the Conservation Council, which talks about that we're experiencing a nature crisis, and it's an existential threat to the social and economic prosperity of humanity on par with climate change. And I want to acknowledge that we have a climate change commitment. And I think it's interesting that we are deflecting to the state, which I completely understand, as Councillor Eaton highlighted, the consistency, et cetera, but I wonder if there'll be a crunch where we actually need to do something, and just have been thinking about, would a task force of some type be beneficial that brings multiple disciplines together across multiple sectors? It may have already happened, but acknowledging that Mitcham have gone down the path, I think it was Mitcham, and I know through the staff's incredible work that it's not just about getting cats off the street, but it's the question of what are we going to do with them once we've got them. And I think that that's a tricky, wicked problem that we can't resolve on our own. And so I wonder if would be of value to have a task force or, something like that that's collaborative, where we can think about what we can do in the city. But I also acknowledge that a letter and advocacy to state is probably a very good start.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. I'm not going to go with the jokes either. However, I want to reinforce what Councillor Eaton raised. This sits fairly on the state government. Certainly we have a role to play within it, but if we go back to our workshops where we talked about this, the whole issue of proof when you're looking at compliance is the area that would cost us so much, and then the result will be very little. So there needs to be some sort of out-of-the-box thinking with this. And whether it's caging cats or putting them on leads or whatever, I don't know. That might be a simple, quick answer, but it is certainly beyond our purview as far as the council goes anyway. And I strongly support the motion to write to the state government to get them to do something about this.
Thank you. Councillor Eaton, did you wish to close debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, everyone. I love writing the letter, as you know. 9:17, councillor reporting schedule. Do I have a mover? Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Yes, happy to move.
Councillor Platten, are you seconding?
Very happy to second.
Any questions? Councillor THEMELIOTIS, did you want to close? No? Do you want to close? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Okay, now we have all those questions on notice, which are all there for you. And our first motion on notice, we have done 11.5, but we now have 11.1. Councillor THEMELIOTIS. Can you press your... Yes, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Elected members, we've heard from Mel from Southern Volunteering today, who's really passionate about our volunteers. Sorry, I haven't got my notice of motion in front of me.
Is that the one you were looking at?
No, I wanted to see it on my...
That's all right.
Sorry, elected members, we heard that there's over 2 million less volunteers than we previously had. And if we look at a very grassroots level, I'm seeing quite often clubs and groups that are folding through lack of volunteering. I'm seeing events that aren't taking place through lack of volunteers. I'm also seeing long-serving members in our community or volunteers
when it comes around to AGM season, going, well, I've got no choice but to stay on because there's just no succession plan. Mel talked about the perfect storm, and the perfect storm really started about 2 or so years prior with the former federal government trying to address one thing and then creating a whole load of change to a load of other areas, which has in turn created this perfect storm. On top of COVID, what some of those federal changes did is it changed the 15-hour rule. So the 15-hour rule for Centrelink recipients was you do 15 hours of volunteering in your community and you can receive your Centrelink payment. So instead of the 15-hour rule, now it's a point scoring rule, and you do different activities and you get different points. Unfortunately, volunteering is right down at the bottom of point scoring, which means the value of volunteering in our community has been diminished. I spoke to members of my community and our wider community, and they did talk about cost of living being a barrier to volunteering, transportation being a barrier to volunteering, not feeling supported as a volunteer, being underappreciated as a volunteer, being burnt out as a volunteer as well. And also the new, which was also part of these federal changes, this online volunteering system. And the reason why the online volunteering system has become a barrier is because a lot of people who volunteer are older. They don't want to use an online system. They want to go and see Southern volunteering. They want to sit down face to face and talk to someone and talk about what's happening in their lives. So I know, like a couple of my family members who volunteer, they have arthritis. They've had spinal surgery. They are unable to sit down for long periods of time and stand up for long periods of time. They're unable to carry certain weights, which then precludes them from certain elements of volunteering. So that's where volunteering, Southern volunteering comes in, is it would find the appropriate sort of volunteering for that particular volunteer. Now, some will say the answer is our young people and they're the succession plan and they need to get more active and involved. I think that's one element, but the reality is I think the answer is between the 50 to 70-year-olds. That's where the winning argument is for our volunteers, but they're just not available. Why? Because we're working longer, because we're having multiple jobs, because of cost of living, because of having to take on grandchildren and childcare arrangements now. All those issues have sort of compounded. So why have this conversation and why bring our people together? Well, what I'm asking of you is the ability to use the Ray Gilbert room, the ability to have a workshop with people who volunteer in our community, with Southern volunteering, with our mayor inviting our Minister for Human Services, Nat Cook, and anyone else who is relevant, elected members as well, to piece together what they're hearing on the ground, what they're experiencing, those stories that they want to share, and maybe solutions as well. So what's that going to do? That's going to package it up into a letter that then gets sent to the relevant ministers and also take part in this national volunteering strategy, which had already started, but is now being re-picked up again. So it's been reignited by Minister Cook, which I'm really excited about. So I think we've got a role to play in this, and I hope you'll support it.
Thank you. Councillor Drew, question or debate? Oh, no, sorry, 11. Who is that? 13. I'm 13, sorry.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, councillor. Did you wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. Councillor Platten?
Yes, I would love to speak to it.
Go ahead.
I think that the decline in volunteering have been the top 3 of conversations that I have with residents. Certainly community groups are all struggling, and it's rare that I would go to one and they would have an abundance of people helping them. So I think that we need to give as much support as we can. I also don't want to miss the opportunity, as I did in the last motion, to really highlight that I love the Mayor writing letters, and I hope that she enjoys it.
Councillor Bell? One question.
Yes, just a comment or a point that I'd like to make. Just to say that I support the motion, and just wanted to highlight that it wasn't that long ago that we had the multi-sports group in the Gilbert room, and we discussed especially the issue of volunteers. And what was fabulous about that is they came together and provided some ideas. So maybe I can suggest that people have a look at the report that came from that as well. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Oh, Councillor Fenelon, you wish to close? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously, and you can let Mel know that for us. Councillor Dew. Hang on. Councillor Fisher, can you let go? Yeah, turn your mic off. Okay, let's start again. Councillor Dew.
I think this is timely to follow the previous norm because, as we would be very aware, RSLs are made up of volunteers, and it's probably not normal for us to maybe work in this space. However, we are about capacity building, and when I think about our community plan now, it's about capacity building and really livability and leadership, and I think our role within that is to identify and find out from our groups what the barriers are that they're facing, what are the challenges, what are the strengths, what are the opportunities, so that as an institution and as an organisation we can work towards fostering and scaling up, but also decreasing barriers. And so this is an opportunity to bring RSL clubs together. I know that there have been challenges over the years through Remembrance Day and Anzac Day. So this is, and there's maybe some shared challenges, but also some opportunities. And we also have a lot of information and intel within our organisation. So how can we use that to support RSLs to continue to do the work that they do? RSLs obviously a very important part of our local community, and I'm sure everyone here has been to an Anzac Day or Remembrance Day service, and they're extremely moving and extremely important, and this is a way to continue to ensure really the self-sustainability of them in our region.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mel. Seconded and debate.
Go ahead.
Very much a very important thing within our council area, given the scale of the Anzac Day celebrations that we have. And one that springs to mind is the event that is hosted, if you like, by the Moffat Vale RSL. In fact, we are the hosts, we are the organisers, the runners, and everything else. Substantial amount of money goes into that, and there have been approaches through the mayor, letters and through ministers, and both local and state. So again, both state and federal, talking about the need for support of these organisations. It is a big calendar event in the RSL world, and certainly it's a big calendar event on the Australian diary as well. So I think any attempt to get people together to talk about the issues is a very good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. No further speakers. Councillor Dew, do you wish to close? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillor EATON, 11.3.
This was certainly about a letter going to the Minister and also keeping the local Member of Parliament informed. And I just reflect back that before those upgrades were done to MAYORAL at Coromandel Valley, many of these issues had already been raised. And unfortunately, DET didn't take consideration of those when they did the upgrade. Erin Thompson, when she was mayor, endeavoured to try to have a consultation day at the Coromandel Valley Community Centre. It never went ahead, unfortunately, but she had a very successful one at Cherry Gardens, and if you do the comparisons to what was done on the southern part of Main Road from Black Road to Chandler's Hill Road and compare it to what was done on the northern side, it's quite significant. I've been to most of the debates in here, but I've been to two street side meetings that the member for Lake put together, and one was with the Minister, and the same issues have been raised. Councillor THEMELIOTIS and I have both had the issues raised with us when we attend Coromandel Community Centre board meetings. So certainly I'm supporting the motion.
Thank you. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to second the motion. And just briefly say that this is a state government road. It is not a council road. So this is just pulling on our advocacy here. I think our community concern is really beefed up, and it's happened really because they've seen Main Road Cherry Gardens upgraded, and there's sort of like, well, what about us? It's a significantly constrained road, and I think there's a lot of ideas and there's a lot of safety measures that need to take place. I think what's missing for me here is that Mitcham Council probably have a bit of skin in the game here and should be a bit of a part of this. The local MP has been advocating and doing a lot of work as well, and I thank her, Catherine, for that. So this is just one of those advocacy pieces that I hope you'll support.
Thank you. Councillor Platten, question or debate?
Happy to debate, please. Another motion and another letter, and I'm very happy to support, especially when it comes to road safety. And I know how much this is spoken about in Thalassa, and I hope you'll support it.
Thank you. Councillor Egan, do you wish to close? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried unanimously, and I look forward to working with the member for Waite on your behalf for that. On 11.4, Councillor Stafford.
Yes, I'd like to speak to the motion, move the motion and speak to the motion.
Go ahead.
So councillors, there are parts of our beautiful city that are oftentimes not quite as beautiful as they could be. Especially parts of the main roads, so think Norfolk Vale and think along Beach Road, along Main South Road, especially in the areas that are really dense with business. They're often scrambled with graffiti, especially around businesses, because the signs, they make beautiful canvases for it. So I'll try to keep this under a minute just to be quick because it's almost 10. But this motion is basically looking to get some community outreach and to go to our businesses to see if we can get them on board with our graffiti removal program, which helps us work with businesses to either subsidise their removal of graffiti or give them the tools to actually do so themselves. I found recently reporting on graffiti within my ward that a lot of businesses along the main road, which is, you would think, the highest foot traffic and the most graffiti laden, they had not signed on to this program. So ideally, this would look at getting as many businesses as we can on that program and dealing with this issue, and looking forward at what we can do in the future long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Greaves.
I'll second the motion. And I guess while we're speaking of volunteers, just a shout out to our graffiti volunteers who are numerous, but obviously very busy. They do a significant amount, and certainly while something like this may increase their workload, it's definitely a worthwhile approach to getting your business on board.
Thank you. Councillor Platten.
Certainly. Happy to speak if I can.
Go ahead.
So I'm absolutely in support, Councillor Stafford. I think one of the keys to reducing graffiti, especially around commercial areas, is to reduce graffiti. Graffiti tends to attract graffiti, and if you're on top of it and you remove it, the glorification that is sought by certain graffiti taggers is removed. And I, from my experience, have seen a decline. As a former business owner in Port Noarlunga, we certainly tried our very hardest to remove graffiti as soon as it was there, and saw a reduction in my time. One point that I will make to administration is to also contact the business groups, the business associations with this information. Often they're a very good point of contact to businesses that might not be seen by administration. Certainly in our area, Christie's Beach Business and Tourism Association is an amazing resource for businesses in that area. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stafford, do you wish to close debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. And I know you had an opportunity to speak to some of those volunteers at the breakfast at FOC recently, so that's terrific. We've had this motion. We've done that one. We've done 11.5. We now need to go into confidence with a number of items.
Just need to ask if there's any urgent business.
Any urgent business? Councillor Fisher. Hang on.
Thank you. Nothing urgent as such because we don't have other business in this chamber. But tonight with the sound system, it's very embarrassing, especially with a gallery full that half of our microphones malfunction. Now, I don't need to go back to the Great Invasion 2 years ago, but that was all about technology and what they could and what they could not hear. A couple of council meetings ago, we had a problem with people hearing in the gallery. So I think and I might have to construct a notice of motion for the next meeting, or if admin can take it on notice.
I think we'll take that on notice. Thank you, councillor. Yeah, it doesn't meet the criteria for urgent business, but it doesn't not meet the criteria of what is urgent and important to us in terms of being able to service our community. And yes, we will take that on notice and work with you for a motion if that is indeed required. Thank you. We will now move into confidence. Councillor THEMELIOTIS.
Yes, happy to.
Thank you. For exclusion of the public, do I have a seconder? Councillor Bell?
Yes, second.
All those in favour? Thank you. Can the chamber be